Finish off where we finish up what we left off last week. I think we were on the man with two faces. We had just gotten to the big. Wait. Had we gotten to Harry talking with Dumbledore? Or were we still on with Harry talking to Quirrell? Anybody remember?
I think we got to Dumbledore.
We got to Dumbledore? Okay. That's what I thought.
Him being out of the dungeon.
Yeah, page 297. We left off here. Harry wakes up. He finds out he's been asleep, or he's been out, let's say, for 3 days, and he keeps coming back to the stone. Page 297, Harry says, when in response to Dumbledore's, I feared I might be late. You nearly were. I couldn't have kept him off the stone much longer. Not the stone, boy. You. The effort involved nearly killed you. For one terrible moment there, I was afraid it had. It had. As for the stone, it's been destroyed. Harry's like, what? What about your friend Nicholas Flamel? And Dumbledore makes that comment, oh, you know about Nicholas. You did do the thing right, or properly, didn't you? Implying he knew Harry was going to try to find the stone. He didn't know Harry was kind of going to go through all the proper channels. He was going to properly research things, okay? Which he kind of did, but he cheated, along the way. So, Harry says, but that means he and his wife will die, doesn't it? Dumbledore, yep, they'll die. Harry's puzzled. Dumbledore says, to one as young as you, I'm sure it seems incredible. But to Nicholas and Perenelle, it really is like going to bed after a very, very long day. After all, to the well-organized mind, death is but the next great adventure. The stone was really not such a wonderful thing. As much money in life as you could want. The two things most human beings would choose above all. The trouble is, humans do have a knack of choosing precisely those things that are worst for them. Okay? So notice a couple of things that he says there. To the well-organized mind, death is but the next great adventure. That's the first thing. Okay? So notice what death is. It's not an end. It's not a cessation. It's the beginning of something else. It's the opening of a door. Okay? But for who? For whom? Only somebody who has a well-organized mind. So what's a well-organized mind? How do you organize your mind? That's an interesting question. Okay? I heard your conversation in here earlier about God. And when I came in, I don't know if anybody picked up on it, I had music playing on my computer. It's Russian Orthodox music. And I was thinking, what if somebody asked me about that? I spent 2 hours in confession today. Now, confession isn't, for an Orthodox, it's not like you see in a movie about Catholics where you go into a little box and you go, bless me, Father, I sin, and you rattle off a bunch of stuff. It's a lot more of a conversation. It's face-to-face with a priest, etc. Okay? But what are you doing in that process? You're doing this. You're organizing, not your mind, kind of your whole life. You're orienting things with the real word of that mean orient. The real meaning of, man, it's been up since 3 o'clock. That's why I can't get my words right. The real meaning of that word orient. How do we use that word today?
Orient yourself. Where are you?
To orient yourself, okay? Which means to kind of focus. Where are you in space, so to speak? What else does this word mean? We use it as a location. The orient. which is where?
Asia.
East. Okay? To orient yourself literally means to turn and face east. Okay? I'm not saying that Dumbledore is saying, you have to prepare for confession in order to go on for the next great adventure. But he is saying something about life. You have to have, as Hermione says in one of the films, you have to have your priorities straight. Okay? You've got to get things arranged. We meet a couple of people in this first novel. People, I'm using that word loosely. They were people. They aren't anymore. Nearly Headless Nick, the Bloody Baron, the Fat Friar, they're ghosts. Okay? Why haven't they gone on? Why aren't they on their next great adventure? Well, we're going to find out at the end of book 5. Why not? But to give it a little bit away, they didn't do this. They didn't do this. So what does it mean to have a well-organized mind? It means to be prepared for this. To be prepared for death. Okay? I was pointing out last night in my Shakespeare course, there's a scene in Henry IV, Part 2, where the character Falstaff mentions to his whore, literally, she's talking about, John, you need to get ready. You need to get your body ready for death. And he says, don't be, a death's head to me. Don't be, he says, a death's head. And then he says, don't be a reminder of death. To use the Latin, a memento mori. What's he saying? Don't tell me I'm going to die. I don't want to think about death. Not many people do, right? Okay. Dumbledore is saying Nicholas and Perenelle have enough elixir to do what? To set their affairs in order. They have enough elixir to get everything prepared. Now, he's talking there on one level about what? Their quote-unquote earthly affairs. Get the will settled, get, all the legal stuff taken care of. But I think he's also talking about other things. All right? Go back to that page. They have enough elixir to store to set their affairs in order, and then, yes, they will die. To one as young as you, I'm sure it seems incredible. But to Nicholas and Perenelle, it really is like going to bed after a very, very long day. What is one of the euphemisms used for death today? The long sleep. Okay? You see on tombstones, rest in peace. Really? Resting? Book 7, Harry's going to go to his parents' gravesite. When he sees that tombstone, he isn't thinking requiescent in pacem. He isn't thinking rest in peace. He's thinking there's nothing left of them but moldering bones. They're not resting in peace in any way. Okay? To the well-organized mind, to the one prepared, death is but the next great adventure. What does Voldemort's name mean?
Fly out of death.
To flee or fly from death. What does that tell us about Voldemort?
He's trying to escape.
He fears it. He's trying to escape it. He's unwilling to see it. Okay? As an entry to something else. Why not? Hamlet says, death is the undiscovered country, from whose bourne no one returns. And it does what? It scares us because it's undiscovered. We don't know what's beyond the door. Okay? Dumbledore goes on. The stone was not really such a wonderful thing. As much money and life as you could want. Okay? As much money and life as you could want. The two things most humans would choose above all. And then he balances that half of the sentence with the second half. The trouble is, humans do have a knack of choosing precisely those things that are worst for them. These are the two things most humans would choose above everything else. Problem is, humans have a knack for choosing, how does he put it? Precisely those things that are worst for them. So if these are the two things that we would tend to choose, above all, and we have a knack of choosing exactly those things that are worst for us, what is Dumbledore saying about these? These are the two worst things for us. Okay? So if these are the two worst things for us, what are the two best things?
Poverty and death.
Poverty and death, death and taxes. Poverty and death. So go sell all that you have and follow me, to paraphrase Christ. You know, Rowling isn't trying to slip, Christian stuff in there. I think she is trying to slip in an idea, however, that this won't what?
Buy happiness.
Won't make you happy. It won't buy you what? It won't buy you happiness.
But love.
It won't buy you love. Beatles song in there somewhere. What else?
Won't buy you life.
It won't buy you life. It won't extend your life by what? Anything. A second. Okay? What can it do on the flip side?
Make it a little easier. Okay.
Okay, yeah, it can make life easier. Can it also make life a lot worse?
Mm-hmm.
Too much of this. How can you have too much life? Christ said, I came to give you life that you might have life in abundance. Is Dumbledore saying, Jesus is all wrong there? I don't think so. I don't think that text is hidden here by any means. Okay? But I think what she is suggesting is what? Are there times when we should be willing to sacrifice this? Are there things worth not living for, but dying for? These are the two things most people would choose above all. What about choosing the opposite of these two things? Okay? What house does Harry choose to go into? Gryffindor. Why did he choose Gryffindor, not Slytherin? What did the Sorting Hat say Slytherin could have offered Harry? Greatness. Okay? Harry doesn't choose greatness, does he? Doesn't he almost choose the opposite? He chooses to be humble, okay? Harry lay there, lost for words. Why?
He's thinking. He's
Okay,
confused now.
thinking. How old's Harry?
11.
He's 11 years old. And Dumbledore is telling him, Harry, you can have too much life and you can have too much money. Okay, Harry was raised where he himself was kind of poor. The Dursleys weren't poor, but he was. He comes on his 11th birthday to discover he's fabulously rich. His best friend is relatively poor. Okay, so Harry's kind of trying to wrap his head around this. Too much money? Too much life? Okay, so the stone's gone. You know who. Call him Voldemort, Harry. Always use the proper name for things. Fear of a name increases fear of the thing itself. In other words, name it. Don't be afraid of it. Okay? And yet, I referred to a euphemism earlier. People come up, my mom died in beginning of January. People come up, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. And they say things like, may she rest in peace. No, she's dead. She didn't just pass on. Pass away. Like floated down, like Boromir down the river. No, died. Kaput. Kicked the can. Kicked the bucket. Croaked. You can come up with all kinds of humorous euphemisms as well. Okay? Call it by what it really is, Dumbledore says. He says, yes, okay, well, Voldemort's going to try other ways of coming back, isn't he? I mean, he isn't gone, has he? How does Harry know this?
He's already come back once.
Yeah,
He can feel it.
possibly. It's a gut reaction. It's an instinct. No, Harry, he is not. He's still out there somewhere, perhaps looking for another body to share, not being truly alive. He cannot be killed. Okay? He doesn't have his own physical existence. He left Quirrell to die. He shows just as little mercy to his followers as his enemies. Nevertheless, Harry, while you may only have delayed his return to power, it will merely take someone else who is prepared to fight what seems a losing battle next time. Kind of sounds like Gandalf talking about the shadow. He says the shadow always, once it's defeated, it goes off, it hides, and then it grows again. And it takes a new shape, only to be defeated, and then grow again. And if he's delayed again and again, why, he may never return to power. Does Dumbledore really think that? No. Harry nods. Some other things I'd like to know, if you could tell me, things I want to know the truth about. The truth. It is a beautiful and terrible thing, and should therefore be treated with great caution. Dumbledore's talking about truth like it's a very expensive goblet, something made of glass. But I shall answer your questions unless I have a very good reason not to, in which case I beg you'll forgive me. I shall not, of course, lie. So you might ask me a question that I'm not going to answer, but I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to say, oh, Harry, it'll be okay. So, Voldemort said he only killed my mother because she tried to stop him from killing me. Why would he want to kill me in the first place? See, Harry asked this question now, and yet, when you go back to through the trap door, page 270, Harry tells Ron and Hermione, don't you understand what it'll be like if Voldemort comes back again? If I get caught before I get to the stone, well, I'll have to go back to the Dursleys and wait for Voldemort to find me there. How does Harry know at that point on page 270 Voldemort is after him? He doesn't. There's nothing in the book that has told us that. That's where Rowling is kind of giving away a little bit of the game. Okay? That's an element I think that shows she's not a polished writer yet. She's giving a hint that shouldn't be given because she's going to give that hint on 298. Okay? If I get caught before I can get to the stone, well, I'll have to go back to the Dursleys and wait for Voldemort to find me there. It's only dying a bit later than I would have because I'm never going over to the dark side. Notice what Harry is already saying about dying. In fact, earlier, when he was in the Forbidden Forest and he was on Firenze's back, Firenze asked him, okay, about the use for unicorn blood. And Harry says, no, we haven't studied it. Firenze says, it'll give you a kind of half-life, but you'll be cursed forever. Anybody remember Harry's response?
Wouldn't it be better to die than live in a half-life?
Wouldn't it be better to die than to be cursed forever? In other words, his mind is already organizing itself. It's better to die than what? Do certain things. Death is a better choice. Okay? Back to 298. Why did he want to kill me in the first place? First quick thing you asked me, I cannot tell you. Now that is a lie of sorts. He cannot tell him. He chooses not to tell him. Why? Book 5, Dumbledore tells us, because he thought he was protecting Harry. He didn't think Harry could take the truth at this point. What has Harry just done? He defeated Voldemort. When he was a baby, he didn't defeat him. He just sat there and cried. He did nothing. This time, he intentionally opposed him. He stood up against him to stop him from what? Getting that stone that would allow him to come back to full power. Okay? So he put himself on the line. He sacrificed himself and ended up 3 days in the hospital ward for it. He says, not now, you'll know one day. Put it from your mind. Yeah, right. Satan's after me. I'm going to put that up from my mind. So Harry knew it would be no good to argue. Okay, so then why couldn't Quirrell touch me? Your mother died to save you, Harry. If there's one thing Voldemort cannot understand, it is love. He cannot understand love. He didn't realize that love as powerful as your mother's for you left its own mark. Harry kind of, I imagine, Harry looks, is there a mark? No, not a scar. No visible sign to have been loved so deeply, even though the person who loved us is gone, will give us some protection forever. Was Voldemort never loved that completely? As a child? It's in your very skin. How did Harry's mother protect him?
Through death.
By sacrificing herself.
How did she sacrifice herself?
She jumped.
Describe it. Physically describe the scene.
She covered his body and blocked Voldemort's path.
Okay. Harry's in a crib, or in his bed. Voldemort comes in. She goes, no, not Harry, not my little boy. Voldemort says, move aside, you silly girl. We find this out later in book 3. And then what?
She jumps.
She moves in front. Okay? She becomes an obstacle. What do you do when you move in front of somebody to block them from somebody else? You make yourself as big as possible, right? So if this is the crib, you do this? No. Where are your arms?
Out.
Spread out like that. Notice what form she makes. Okay? I'm not reaching into the text for this. We're going to see an image of the cross later on. It's used once. An actual image of the cross used in the 7 novels. One time. With a character you would never expect it to be used with. Because he doesn't come across as your average, Bible thumper, Jesus lover. Okay? So, Quirrell, full of hatred, greed, and ambition, sharing his soul with Voldemort. Notice, not sharing his body, sharing his soul. What does Dumbledore presume? That Philip Pullman, who I mentioned last week, Philip Pullman does not in his Dark Materials. Philip Pullman argues, almost literally, there is no such thing as the soul. There is consciousness, but consciousness is merely a byproduct of electrochemical reactions in the brain. That's what produces your sense of I, me. Okay? Dumbledore doesn't. Dumbledore says there is such a thing as the soul. Pause for a moment. Go back to the mirror of Erised. What did Harry see in the mirror?
What he truly wanted, what his soul truly wanted, what he.
Okay, is it what he truly wanted? Did he truly want, when he first looked in the mirror, to see his mother crying? No. See, I don't think the mirror of Erised is only what Dumbledore says. Okay? I think it shows more than just your heart's deepest desire. I think it really does show something invisible. What does Harry see when he looks in? He sees himself, right? Surrounded by his family. Should he see himself at all?
No.
He's got on the invisibility cloak. He shouldn't see anything. That's why he looks around and wonders, is the whole room full of invisible people? Are there a bunch of people with invisibility cloaks behind me? Maybe. Just not the same kind of invisibility cloaks. I'm using that term metaphorically in relation to the others. Okay? Go on to 299. Back to 299. Notice, quarrel, full of hatred, greed, ambition. Couldn't what?
Touch Harry.
Because Harry is full of
Love.
love. Love can't coexist with hatred. Can't coexist with greed. What does greed desire? Not just money. I mean, it's largely money, but you can be greedy for power. You can be greedy for sex. You can be greedy for things. You can be greedy for glory. What does greed seek? Or what is the object of greed?
Abundance.
Okay? For
All things.
me. Greed is all about me. Okay? And ambition. Ambition's all about me too. What is love
Father.
all about?
Others.
Love is always about the other. You hear people talk about marriage. Marriage, it's a 50-50 deal. If you go into a marriage thinking it's 50-50, that marriage will not last. Marriage is a 100-100 deal. You give it all. Why? Because you're not concerned about yourself. This is coming from 30 years of marriage. It's not about you. It's about your spouse. It's all about your spouse. Similarly, non-marital love, love of friends and such. Do you have those friends? Do you love your friends for what they can do for you? If you do, that's twisted.
Was a friend more a asset?
Okay, but even that. An asset means what? Something that benefits me. Okay? Whereas it should be the other way around. What is your friendship? What does your friend get out of his or her friendship with you? Okay? What do you give of yourself to them? Notice, quarrel, because he's full of hatred, greed, ambition, can't even touch Harry. Why? Because his mother's love protected him. Go on. Harry, the invisibility cloak. Do you know who sent it to me? Your father happened to leave it in my possession, and I thought you might like it. Okay? Notice how we learn stuff about Harry's parents through the course of this novel. What's the first thing Harry learns about his mom and dad? Hagrid tells him, your mom and dad were wizards.
Great.
And you'll be a thumping good one too, your mom and dad being what they were. Okay? Prior to that, what did he think about his mom and dad?
Died in the car.
Died in a car wreck. Okay? They were, if he ever heard the Dursleys talk about them, what would he have heard about his parents?
No.
Weirdos.
Losers, weirdos, freaks, got what they deserved, as Vernon put it. Okay? What's the next thing he hears about his parents? Okay, that comes later. Well, yeah, I mean, they were killed by Voldemort. He hears from Malfoy on the train, if you're not politer, you'll go the way of your parents. It's not quite clear what exactly that means. Okay? He saves Neville's Remembrall. McGonagall puts him on the Quidditch team, and what does she tell him? Your father was a fantastic Quidditch player. He would be very proud of you. So Harry now has learned his parents were wizards. They were killed by the most powerful dark wizard who ever lived, possibly. Possibly the most powerful, excepting maybe Salazar Slytherin. His father played Quidditch. He's going to play Quidditch. So notice he has something in connection with his father. Previously, he knew nothing about that. And then what does he get?
He has his mother's eyes.
How does he know? Actually, that came earlier.
Hagrid said
That came earlier. He meets Ollivander, and Ollivander says, you have your mother's eyes. So he learns his eyes are like his mother's. Okay. Then he finds out his father played Quidditch. Then he looks in the mirror of Erised. What does he see? He looks like his father with his hair. He has his mother's eyes. He even has the knees that go with some of his ancestors. Okay? So as the novel moves along, we see gradually Harry's kind of family history unfold before us. He is gradually informed a little bit about them. Is it any accident that he's named Seeker? What does the Sorting Hat say when Harry puts it on? He has not a bad mind. He has great talent.
He wants to prove himself.
And he wants to prove himself. He has a thirst to prove himself. That word prove, I think we talked about it last week a little bit in another context. It comes from what tradition? Alchemy. It's the same. It means the same as try and test. To prove, to try, to test. It's all talking about that alchemical transformation. Okay? And then on Christmas, he actually gets something that belonged to one of his parents. Previously, they've been intangible things. His eyes, his hair, his being a Quidditch player. Now he has something that belonged to his father. Okay? Like this ring belonged to my grandfather. It becomes for Harry an heirloom. It's a physical tie to his father. So he asks Dumbledore. And Dumbledore says, well, your father happened to leave it in my possession. I thought you might like it. So what does that do to his understanding of his father? His father and Dumbledore were what?
Had a close relationship.
Friends.
They had a close relationship. What kind of relationship does Harry have with Dumbledore at this point?
Development.
Almost not.
Oh, yeah, almost done. Student, headmaster. He doesn't see him much. He doesn't have classes with Dumbledore. Dumbledore's kind of like the absent professor, overseeing the school. Though is he really absent? He was there in the room with the Mirror of Erised, seemingly all 3 nights that Harry goes there.
Creepy stalker.
Well, yeah. Or Grand Chess Master. I mean, he's moving things around. What did he tell Harry that 3rd night? If you should ever come across the mirror again, now you will be prepared. Prepared for what? For the 7th protection for the Sorcerer's Stone. Okay? You'll know how it works. Quirrell doesn't know how it works. Apparently Snape doesn't know how. Apparently nobody else knows. Yes?
All right, we talked last week briefly about how Harry being out for about 3 days is biblical. It matches up with Christ.
It's elusive, yeah.
Could that also be biblically alluding to whenever he visits the Mirror of Erised for 3 nights? Could that also be
Sure.
biblically?
Sure. Yeah, and 3 is an important number biblically. How long is Jonah in the belly of the whale? 3 days. Okay. Christ is in the tomb. 3 days. Okay. Tear this temple down in 3 days. I will build it up again. Christ says. So you have all those echoes. If you don't want to, use biblical symbolism, whatever, just say it's an echo. It's an allusion to that. Okay? So,
Grand chess master.
yeah. Your father used it mainly for sneaking off to the kitchens to steal food when he was here. What has Dumbledore just done?
Told him he was mischievous.
Okay. Your father broke the rules. What else?
Raised Harry above his father.
Okay.
Told him.
He gave him quality. He gave Harry an idea of the type of person that he was.
Okay.
Told him that his father used the cloak at some point.
Okay. You're all missing the obvious one.
That he used to sneak out just like he did.
That his father was a thief.
Kind of. Closer. He's planting an idea in Harry's mind. Do we ever hear before that Harry ever thought of using the cloak to sneak down to the kitchens to grab food? No, we're not. What has Dumbledore done? Come on, Harry, you're 12 years old. You've got a magical invisibility cloak. You can go anywhere you want in this castle. Your father used to break all kinds of rules. I don't mean Dumbledore is saying this gives you carte blanche to break all the rules, but he is kind of suggesting, well, if you're going to be your father's son, be your father's son.
He kind of suggesting just for a moment for him to just be a kid,
Yeah.
because he's always kind of thinking bigger than his.
What has he just done? Why does he go down through the trapdoor? I'm spending way too much time on this. Why does he go down through the trapdoor? Is it for himself? What's he thinking of?
To say
His
that.
parents.
Stopping Voldemort. Keep going. From
Returning to power.
returning to power and...
Destroying more.
Bringing forth an era of evil.
Yeah. He is stopping Voldemort from destroying everything that the wizarding world has achieved. An 11-year-old kid. Okay. So what's he doing?
Saying just be a kid. Try not to do.
No, I don't mean that. What's Harry doing?
Thinking as an adult.
Or beyond an adult almost.
What else? What does Aragorn say about what the Rangers do for the Shire?
Protecting. In the shadows.
He is protecting what? Everybody else. We must expect great things from you, Mr. Potter, Ollivander says. So, Harry, there's one more, something else. Fire away. Quirrell said Snape. Quirrell, Snape. What does Harry not use with either of those two professors?
Professor.
Professor Snape, Harry. Notice Dumbledore doesn't correct him about Quirrell. Why not? Because he's evil.
He's betrayed him.
And, yeah. Well, yeah, him. Notice, it's like he can't even say it. Yeah, him. Quirrell said he hates me because he hated my father. Is that true? Oh, more information about dear old dad. Well, they did rather detest each other, not unlike yourself and Mr. Malfoy. Has Harry gone running to Dumbledore with complaints about Malfoy? No. So how does Dumbledore know? Do you think there's anything at Hogwarts that Dumbledore doesn't know? And then your father did something Snape could never forgive. What? He saved his life. Well, what did Harry do for Malfoy in the Forbidden Forest? What did Harry do for Malfoy by going down into the hidden chamber?
Save his life.
And maybe a whole bunch of other people's. What? Yes. Funny the way people's minds work, isn't it? Professor Snape couldn't bear being in your father's debt. I do believe he worked so hard to protect you this year. Harry's trying trying to figure that one out. What do you mean Snape tried to protect me this year? What did Harry think Snape was doing at the Quidditch match?
Trying to
Trying
converse.
to take him down.
Trying to curse him, trying to take him down. What did Quirrell tell him? No, dear boy, that was me. Harry, one more thing. How did I get the stone out of the mirror? Dumbledore, well, I'm glad you asked that, because one of my more brilliant ideas. Only one who wanted to find the stone, find it but not use it, would be able to get it. Otherwise, they just see themselves making gold and making the elixir of life. Notice what Harry doesn't want.
Just to use this one.
He doesn't want all the wealth of the world. He doesn't want untold life, uncountable, unlimitable life. Okay? So Fred and George and all the others come in, and we get the end of year feast. All the points are added up, and we find out, after Dumbledore adds points to Harry, Ron, and Hermione for best played chess game,
Logic.
okay? Hermione for the use of cool logic in the face of fire. Harry for pure nerve and outstanding courage. Notice he doesn't say what Harry did. He does say earlier that, of course, what you did was a secret, so everybody knows. Okay. Now Gryffindor has the same number of points as Slytherin. Dumbledore raises his hand, calms everybody down, and he says, there's all kinds of courage. It takes a great deal of bravery to stand up to our enemies, but just as much to stand up to our friends. What kind of courage is that? Keep in mind who her intended audience is. What are 11-year-olds starting to confront?
Peer
11,
pressure.
12, peer pressure. Go with the flow. Do what everybody else does. And Neville says no. Neville, of all people, who can barely even walk without tripping. Therefore, I award 10 points to Mr. Neville Longbottom. Why does Dumbledore do this? What does Neville need more than anything else?
Confidence.
Confidence. He just needs a little confidence. Which is what makes Harry such a good teacher in Book 5. He builds up Neville's confidence. He doesn't do what Neville's worst teacher does.
Ridicule.
What is Snape constantly doing with Neville? Tearing him down. Okay? Ripping him apart. Okay. So that one ends. And the next one begins. It's summer. And it's Harry's birthday. And he hasn't gotten any gifts. He threatens Dudley. And so he gets sent to his room. It's the night of the big shindig at the Dursleys' house. Mr. Dursley is having a client over. He's hoping to secure a huge order of drills. Harry goes up to his room. And Harry sees this funny creature sitting on his bed, page 12. Wearing what looked like an old pillowcase with rips for arm and leg holes. Oh, hello. Harry Potter. So long as Dobby wanted to meet you, sir. Such an honor it is. Harry, thank you. What are you? Is what he thinks, but he asks, who are you? Dobby, sir. Just Dobby. Dobby the house elf. Harry. Okay, not really a good time for you to be here. Not that I'm not pleased to meet you. Any reason why you're here? Oh, yes, sir. Dobby wonders where to begin. Harry says, sit down. Showing what? Manners. Dobby starts to scream. Sit down. Never, never, ever. Shh. Okay. And Dobby starts to talk. Bangs his head, against the window. And Dobby says he's going to have to punish himself some more, page 14. Harry, but won't they notice if you shut your ears in the oven door? Dobby doubts it, sir. Dobby's always having to punish himself for something, sir. Why don't you leave? Escape. House elf must be set free, sir. The family will never set Dobby free. Harry, and I thought I had it bad staying here for another 4 weeks. Notice, how does the novel begin? What is Harry thinking?
Worst day ever.
It's his worst birthday ever. He's had bad birthdays before, right? What does he usually get on his birthday? Probably nothing. So why is this one any worse than all the others?
Because at least
Because
the
they heard
others
from
they
his
remember.
friends.
Because now he has friends. And his friends apparently have forgotten him. Okay? So what's he focused on this day? Himself. All of his attention is turned inside. What a horrible birthday I have. Where are all my friends? He meets Dobby. He finds out Dobby has to bang his ears in the oven door just about every day. And what does Harry suddenly do? He turns that attention and that focus outwardly. He thinks of Dobby's situation and says, and I thought I had it bad staying here another 4 weeks. Notice, another 4 weeks, then he gets to go off to Hogwarts. Dobby? It's not another 4 weeks. It's how long?
Forever.
Forever. Either until he's released or until he dies. This makes the Dursleys sound almost human. And then Harry shows his essential hairiness. Hairiness, not hairy-nish. Can't anyone help you? Can't I? It's what he constantly does. Books 1 through 7. He's constantly reaching out to help others. Dobby starts to wail. Harry's, shh. Dobby's heard of your greatness, sir, but of your goodness. So Dobby's going to start enumerating Harry's qualities for us. Dobby says, I've heard of your greatness, but now of your goodness. Notice, greatness refers to what?
Ability.
Ability. What does goodness refer to?
Personality.
His personality, his morality. Okay? Dobby never knew. Harry, whatever you've heard about my greatness is a load of rubbish. I'm not even top of my year at Hogwarts. That's Hermione. She, and what is Harry demonstrating? Harry Potter is humble and modest. So we now have greatness, goodness, humility, modesty. Notice his humility. What's he doing? Is he saying, oh, shucks, I'm nothing? No, he's putting Hermione ahead of himself. Okay? Harry Potter speaks not of his triumph over he must not be named. Voldemort? Speak not the name. Sorry. Dobby heard tell that Harry Potter met the Dark Lord for a second time just weeks ago, and Harry Potter escaped yet again. Harry, oh yeah, well. Harry Potter is, keep the lid off, valiant, bold. He has braved so many dangers already, but Dobby's come to protect Harry Potter. Harry Potter must not go back to Hogwarts. Harry's like, excuse me? I didn't quite hear that. Not go back to Hogwarts? Are you kidding? Harry Potter must stay where he is safe. He is too great, too good to lose. Why? There is a plot, Harry Potter. Harry Potter must not put himself in peril. He is too important. Harry, who's plotting? Dobby can't answer. Harry's like, he who must not be named doesn't have a brother, does he? Okay, no. Harry mentions Dumbledore, page 17. Dobby bows his head. Notice we've seen earlier, Dumbledore bows his head when? When McGonagall mentions that James and Lily are dead. Dumbledore's not dead, so why does Dobby bow his head?
Respect.
It's respect, it's reverence. Dobby worships Dumbledore. Dumbledore is the greatest headmaster Hogwarts has ever had. Dobby knows it, sir. Dobby has heard Dumbledore's powers rival those of he who must not be named at the height of his strength. But there are powers Dumbledore doesn't. Powers no decent wizard, which is what McGonagall said. Or excuse me, Dumbledore said, Voldemort had powers I will never have. McGonagall said, only because you're too noble to use them. Okay? Dobby starts banging his head against the wall and stuff again. Okay? So, Dobby lets out that Harry's friends haven't written to him. He's like, how did you know that? And he discovers Dobby has kept all the letters. Okay? They go on, and Dobby says, okay, you leave me no choice. He runs down into the hallway and drops the pudding. Harry gets a letter, page 21, from Mafalda Hopkirk, telling him he's in trouble. And he goes back to his room, and there's Ron, Fred, and George. They rescue him, take him back to the Burrow. I'm going to skip a bunch. And they get to the Burrow, page 33. And what do we see? Oh dear, said George. Mrs. Weasley came to a halt in front of them, her hands on her hips, staring from one guilty face to the next. She was wearing a flowered apron with a wand sticking out of the pocket. So, morning, Mum, says George. Have you any idea how worried I've been? Sorry, Mum, but we had to. And she just lets rip. How does she treat Harry? Morning, Harry dear. Harry doesn't get any flack. Okay. So,
She just wouldn't do to be showing that much of a guess.
yeah, I mean, so Harry gets to spend the next 4 weeks with the Weasleys. Okay. Describe his experience. Yes.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm looking at page 33, just reading on. We talked about earlier how
33.
the well-organized mind deaths with the next great adventure, but on page 33, in correlation with this, Molly Weasley says you could have died, you could have been seen, your father could have lost his job. I feel like she's prioritizing.
Oh, yeah, she is. And I've got that circled. I just didn't talk about it. Yeah. Back up just a hair where she screams, bed's empty, no note, car gone, could have crashed, out of my mind with worry. Did you care? Never, as long as I've lived. You wait till your father gets home. We've never had trouble like this from Bill or Charlie and Percy. That's like, oh, the perfect ones. Perfect Percy, muttered Fred. You could do with taking a leaf out of Percy's book. Okay? That's when she says, you could have died. You could have been seen. You could have lost your father's job. Is she prioritizing in from least to most important? I'm not sure. She might be. But surely she would think their deaths would be more important than Arthur losing his job. After all, what kind of job does Arthur have at the ministry?
Not much.
It's low level. Okay?
Bureaucratic / investigative.
Well, yeah. Really big department. 2 of them. Okay? But she does introduce that you could have died. And who does she say that to? A little foreshadowing here.
Fred.
Okay? Describe Harry's experience of living for 4 weeks with the Dursleys.
I loved it.
Happiest 4 weeks of his life.
Best 4 weeks of his life. He gets to go off in the field behind the house and play Quidditch. He gets to, do stuff with the ghoul in the attic. All kinds of good stuff. Okay? So, they go to Flourish and Blots. How do they go to Flourish and Blots? They don't go the same way Hagrid went. Yeah, because Hagrid took Harry on the tube, which is kind of interesting. I can't imagine seeing Hagrid in the tube, having been on the tube hundreds of times. Because he's too big. He wouldn't fit. He'd have to sit on the floor in order to even be in there. Anyways, they take flu powder. Okay? We find out what books they have to get, and notice, for their defense against the dark arts, page 43. Break with a Banshee by Gilderoy Lockhart, Gadding with Ghouls by Gilderoy Lockhart, Holidays with Hags by Gilderoy Lockhart, Travels with Trolls. Notice what Gilderoy Lockhart apparently really likes. Alliteration. Okay? Does his name mean anything? I think I mentioned in here, John Granger, guy who wrote a book, The Hidden Key to Harry Potter, which I entirely disagree with. Find him online as The Hogwarts Professor. Okay? He's written a whole bunch of books, made a killing off of it. Granger suggests that Gilderoy Lockhart's name is significant for some reasons. Okay? But you don't have to take his meaning for it necessarily. I mean, just look at the name. Roy. If you think that a lot of our names are influenced by French, okay, Roy, this would be roi, which means king. Okay. Gilded king. What is something that's gilded?
Covered in gold.
That's right. I could take this cheap, ugly plastic bottle, cover it in gold, and it wouldn't be a cheap, ugly plastic bottle anymore. It'd be a nice, expensive bottle. Okay? It
Well,
would still
technically, it's a
be
cheap,
round, cheap plastic.
technically, it's a cheap, ugly plastic bottle covered in a nice
Sure.
material.
Okay? Lockhart. What's Lockhart suggest? Lock it?
A grip on.
Set in his nose.
Okay, kind of keep going. Does it say something about his heart?
It's closed.
Locked? It's closed. Why? Why is Gilderoy Lockhart's heart closed? What John Granger suggests is that Gilderoy Lockhart is based on Philip Pullman. I think he's completely bats with that. Anyways. What is Gilderoy Lockhart's heart closed on? We're going to meet Gilderoy Lockhart in just a minute at Flourish and Blotts, and then we're going to see him in this first defense against the dark arts class. How good of a teacher is he?
Not.
What in any other profession, what name would be attached to him? What would he be called?
Mediocre.
What is it really mediocre? I think I heard somebody else say it. A fraud, a charlatan.
To be fair, he is using most of his own books in his course, apparently.
Yeah, a lot of MTSU professors do the same thing. Okay. I have no issues with that, but you know, when you go there. Especially when they're, not major academic. I mean, I wouldn't have any problem with a professor used a book that they wrote if it was published by like Cambridge or Oxford or University of California Press or something like that. But it's when some little rinky-dink vanity press, that's wrong. Because they're only doing that so they get the money. But even his books, what are they all about? Him. Okay. His heart is locked up inside. Compare that with Harry's.
Very outward.
What's Harry always doing? What did he do to Dobley? Can't anybody help? Can't I? Okay? So, they go off to Flourish and Blotts via flu powder. Flu powder works via the flue of a chimney, not a flue. It works via the flue network. Okay? They're called the flue network. It's spelled this way, but you have to go into a fireplace chimney, which is called, the thing that goes up, the flue. That's where she gets her name. So, what do you have to say when you go into the flue?
Location where you want to
Okay? Where does Harry want to go?
Diagon Alley.
Diagon Alley. He doesn't quite say Diagon Alley. He kind of mixes it up, and where does he end up?
Nocturne Alley.
Nocturne Alley. He doesn't come even close to saying Nocturne Alley. Okay? Notice the name. Nocturne alley.
Nighttime.
Say the two words together.
Nocturne.
Nocturne. What does he see? What is on Nocturne alley?
Creatures of the night.
No, not necessarily creatures of the night. Not literally speaking.
Supplies.
Dark art supplies. Dark night supplies.
Black magic are us.
Yeah.
Especially, you could push it even further to nocturnally
Yeah,
to
Exactly.
match the diagonally.
exactly. Okay.
Right.
So he goes in and he sees, he ends up in Borgin and Burke's. He sees the Malfoys come in. Page 50. I love this scene. And Malfoy starts to bitch at his father. And Lucius says, "Touch nothing, Draco. I thought you were going to buy me a present. I said I would buy you a racing broom. What's the good of that if I'm not on the house team? Harry Potter got a Nimbus 2000 last year, special permission from Dumbledore, so he could play for Gryffindor. He's not even that good, it's just because he's famous. Famous for having a stupid scar on his forehead. Everyone thinks he's so smart. A wonderful Potter with his scar and his broomstick." Notice, Lucius, you have told me this at least a dozen times already. What does that mean?
Malfoy's obsessed with it.
Malfoy is obsessed with Harry's fame. And I would remind you, it is not prudent to appear less than fond of Harry Potter. So is he telling Malfoy to be nice to Harry?
To appear night.
Okay, yeah, that's what I mean. Is he telling his son to appear to be nice to Harry?
I think he's just telling him to respect him.
Okay. He says it's not prudent to appear less than fond. So it is prudent to appear fond. If it's not prudent to appear less than fond, take out the not, take out the less than. It is prudent to appear fond. It is smart. It is wise.
Is he kind of referring to keep your friends close but keep your enemies closer?
Possibly. I think he's also saying you don't want to get on the wrong side of Harry Potter and those who will be around him. Okay? Not when most of our kind regard him as the hero who made the Dark Lord disappear. Who refers to Voldemort as the Dark Lord?
Those who follow him.
And only those who follow him refer to him as the Dark Lord. Okay? Everybody else calls him, he must not be named, or Voldemort, if you're Dumbledore. Okay?
Or Harry.
Or Harry. Or Sirius and, Lupin and a few others we'll see. So, Malfoy's there to sell some things. And Harry overhears this conversation. And he comes out and Hagrid finds him. Takes him back to Diagon Alley. And Hagrid tells the Weasleys where he found Harry on Nocturne Alley. Or Nocturnally. And they're like, wow, Fred and Giorgio, really? What'd you see? Because they've never been there. They go to Gringotts and such, and then they make their way to Flourish and Blots. Page 58. They're kind of rummaging around through Flourish and Blots. And Ron comes up on Percy. Percy's reading a little small book. Prefects Who Gained Power. A study of Hogwarts prefects and their later careers. Ron, that sounds fascinating. Go away. Of course, he's very ambitious, Percy. He's got it all planned out. He wants to be Minister of Magic, Ron tells Harry. So if Percy's so ambitious, why wasn't he in Slytherin? We see the sign about Gilderoy Lockhart. He comes into view. Excellent casting, by the way, I will say, for this film. I mean, this was superb. Would have been better if his hair was longer, I think, but Lockhart sees Harry. He grabs him to get him in the picture. Why?
Publicity.
Thank
Keep going.
He wants to look good because he has a famous wizard by his side.
Okay, keep going. What does having Harry beside him ensure?
That he keeps getting buyers for it.
Hey,
What does having Donald Trump on your news program ensure?
People are gonna look at it.
Ratings. Okay? It's going to be on the front page. Okay? Doesn't this tell us an awful lot about Gilderoy Lockhart? He's a publicity whore. Or hound, if you prefer that term. Sorry, don't mean to offend anybody. When young Harry here, page, I think that's 60, stepped into Flourish and Blots today, he only wanted to buy my autobiography. He didn't, actually. The crowd's applause. He had no idea that he would surely be getting much, much more than my book, Magical Me. He and his schoolmates will, in fact, be getting the real Magical Me. Yes, I have taken up the post, blah, 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 blah. And he gives Harry a brand new set of books. Harry gives them to Ginny and buys his own. What was our little introduction to Gilderoy Lockhart back at the Borough?
Oh, they were saying his books are very expensive.
Okay, what else?
That he knows his stuff from Molly was saying.
What about Mrs. Weasley?
She has a book for his household.
She
tips.
fancies.
She fancies him. And anybody else? Hermione?
Ginny.
Jenny? He's a hunk, you know? He's useless, but, you know, he looks good. So, page 61. Bet you loved that, didn't you, Potter? Famous Harry Potter. Can't even go into a bookshop without making the front page. Ginny, leave him alone. He didn't want all that. Potter, you've got yourself a girlfriend. Ron, I just love this line, looks at Malfoy. Oh, it's you, drawled Malfoy. Said Ron, looking at Malfoy as if he were something unpleasant on the sole of his shoe. We're going to get another line like that later on in book 4. Okay, we're going to get a description of Narcissa Malfoy, who looks like she had something unpleasant just beneath her nose that made her kind of scrunch her face up. Okay? Bet you're surprised to see Harry here, eh? Not as surprised as I am to see you in a shop, Weasley. Suppose your parents will go hungry for a month to pay for all those. Ron goes red, as Ginny did. Okay? Ron starts to go after Malfoy. Mr. Weasley calms him down. Says, come on, let's go outside. Well, well, well. Other superb casting. Jason Isaacs is perfect as Lucius Malfoy. Arthur Weasley. Lucius. Busy time at the ministry, I hear. All those raids. I hope they're paying you overtime. He reaches into Ginny's book, pulls a book out. Okay. What book is it? Beginner's Guide to Transformation. What shape is it in?
It's battered.
It's old and battered. This isn't secondhand. This is like 12th hand. Obviously not. And he takes that old battered book, okay, and says, dear me, what's the use of being a disgrace to the name of wizard if they don't even pay you well for it? What does Malfoy betray about himself there? Look at the line again.
Image and his blood and all of that.
No, hold on. What's the use of being a disgrace to the name of wizard if they don't even pay you well for it?
He would do the same thing if they paid him well.
You pay me enough money, I'll disgrace the name of wizard. In other words, he can be bought. Money is one of the two things most people would choose. Only thing is, humans have a knack to choose the things that are worst for them. Mr. Weasley, we have a very different idea of what disgraces the name of Wizard Malfoy. What's Arthur mean?
Who they choose to follow.
Yeah, clearly. The company you keep, Weasley, he looks beyond Arthur Weasley to Mr. and Mrs. Granger. Hermione's parents, which are Muggles. How Muggleish are they? They're dentists. You know, unless they're accountants, you don't get really more Muggleish than that, or actuarials or something like that. Okay? The company you keep, Weasley, and I thought your family could sink no lower. And what happens? Arthur, boom! I mean, he's just going. He's going to take on. Hagrid breaks in, literally picks them up apart from each other. Lucius, here, girl, take your book. It's the best your father can give you. Drops it into her cauldron. Listen to Hagrid's words. You should have ignored him, Arthur. Rotten to the core. The whole family, everyone knows that. No Malfoy's worth listening to her. Bad blood. That's what it is. Come on now. Let's get out of here. Okay? Rotten to the core. The whole family. No Malfoy's worth listening to. Bad blood. What does bad blood imply?
All of them.
Louder?
All of them?
All of them. Did Gollum have bad blood? No. Gollum made a bad choice. That bad choice haunted him the rest of his life. Okay? Was he rotten to the core? No. Who is rotten to the core in Middle Earth? Orcs. Not even Sauron at his beginning was rotten to the core. Okay? Hagrid is saying some people are just rotten and not worth paying any attention to. This is an important idea. All right? Molly is about to bust the gasket. A fine example to set for your children, brawling in public. What Gilderoy Lockhart must have thought. She doesn't care about her family. She's thinking what Gilderoy Lockhart thinks. Okay? Fred, he was pleased. Why? It's going to be in the papers. So, the rest of them go off to King's Cross. Harry and Ron can't get through the barrier. Ron comes up with the bright idea of doing what?
Flying the car.
Let's fly the car. Notice what neither of them think about.
Call for help letter.
Wait for their parents.
Wait for their parents. Okay, the Hogwarts Express leaves at 11 o'clock. Right? Okay, so the parents come back and then what? Mr. Weasley could fly them up. Or drive. Fly. Fly them up. But no, they take the flying Ford Anglia. And they fly up. They're seen by a lot of muggles. They land in the Whomping Willow, which beats the daylights out of the car. The car expels them and then drives off into the woods. Page 77. They make their way up to the castle. They look in the window into the Great Hall. They look at the staff table up at the front. You know, go to, I always take my students when I do my London course. We go to Oxford and we go into Christ Church College, which is the location used for the Great Hall. And you go in the Great Hall, you know, doorways like this, and it's a long, narrow hall like this, and you've got 3 tables, and you have the high table, okay? So they're looking in a window, and they're looking up here, and Snape's not there. What does Ron immediately think? Maybe he's ill. Harry, maybe he's left. Because he missed out on the Defense Against Dark Arts job again. Ron, or maybe he got sacked. They're thinking, maybe there is a God in heaven. I mean, everyone hates him. Or maybe he's waiting to hear why you two didn't arrive on the school train. May Alan Rickman rest in peace, you know. Follow me, says Snape. And Snape takes them in. They go down where?
Dungeon,
To his dungeon. Where should Snape take them?
the Great Hall.
He should take them directly to whom?
McGonagall.
To McGonagall. They are her students. They're not his. This is not his decision. What's he taking them down to his dungeon for?
Scare them.
Yeah, he's gonna scare the daylights out of them. Okay? So he shows them the headline from the Evening Prophet. He tells about the tree being damaged and everything. And McGonagall comes down. She's very upset. And notice what Harry says. Hold on just a second. Page 82. Dumbledore expresses his displeasure and says it's up to McGonagall to decide on the boy's punishment, Severus. Page 82. He says, I've got to go back to the feast. And McGonagall tells Ron, your sister's in Gryffindor. And speaking of Gryffindor, and you know she's getting ready to take house points away from him. Harry interrupts. When we took the car, term hadn't started yet. So Gryffindor shouldn't really have points taken from it, should it? McGonagall gave him a piercing look, but he was sure she'd almost smiled. Why?
Clever.
He's looking out for everybody else.
Okay, why else?
Logic.
Yeah. Oh, you're good. You're smart. That's finally, the kid's starting to think a little bit. But they both get detention instead. What's Ron's detention?
Polished trophies.
He has to polish the trophies in the trophy room. Harry's detention, he gets to address envelopes for Mr. Self-Love. So we meet Gilderoy Lockhart. Ron gets a howler from his mother. Let's see here. Lockhart catches Harry when Harry's on his way to Professor Sprout. He says, Harry, I understand it's natural, this desire for publicity, but, you've got time. Nobody really knows who you are. What does this show us about Lockhart?
He's trying to say, wait till you get to my echelon.
Yeah, wait till you reach my level of fame. What do we hear about Harry when he's just a baby? Everybody will know him. Everybody does know who he is. Okay? So they go on to Lockhart's class. I'm skipping this up about mandrakes. They go on to Lockhart's class, and I wish I had his picture. And Lockhart comes in. He holds his book, picks up from Neville's desk, Traveling with Trolls. And what does it have on the front cover?
Himself.
His picture. Where do authors' pictures usually show up? Real small. His picture, really big, little small title. It says, me. Gilderoy Lockhart, Order of Merlin, 3rd class. 3rd class? How good is that? You're traveling on a plane, you want to travel 3rd class or 1st class?
Barely good enough to make the title.
Yeah. Honorary member of the Dark Force Defense League. What does that honorary member mean?
Used to.
You're not a member.
No.
Not a real member. Exactly. It's like getting an honorary degree. It means you didn't earn it. Okay? 5-time winner of Witch Weekly's Most Charming Smile Award. But I don't talk about that.
You just said.
But he just did. That's a rhetorical device. I'm trying to remember what that's called. And I'm drawing a blank on it. Okay? But he just did. What seemingly is most important? Usually when you order things, the last thing is the most important. His Smile Award. Why? Because he's in love with himself. So, he gives his quiz. What's his quiz all about?
Yeah.
Let's go to Lockhart favorite.
Yeah.
There's also kind of the culture of Great Britain about teeth and how many times it's mentioned in the book how perfect his teeth are and how that's a concerning thing over there.
Oh, I never thought about that.
On
That's
top
true.
of it, they made fun of Hammond all the time because he always had his teeth worked on and they just don't care.
That's true.
Hermione's
Hermione's got big teeth until Madame Pomfrey fixes them beyond what they should be fixed. Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought about that. So he pulls out the Cornish pixies, and what happens?
They go once.
All hell ensues. Because how good is he at putting the genies back in the bottle? Okay. Page 103. Ron, can you believe him? Hermione, he just wants to give us some hands-on experience. Harry, hands-on? Hermione, he didn't have a clue what he was doing. Rubbish. You've read his books. Look at all those amazing things he's done. He says he's done. Okay? And Rowling introduces an interesting idea here about the value of books. Okay? Where does all of Hermione's smarts come from?
Books.
Books. We didn't talk about it, but back here through the trap door, Hermione says, let's see if I can find it. Hermione does the logic test. And she tells him, page 287. She runs to him, she throws her arms around him. Hermione! Harry, you're a great wizard, you know. I'm not as good as you. Very embarrassed as she let go of him. Me, says Hermione. Books and cleverness. There are more important things. Friendship and bravery. And oh, Harry, be careful. Why does she say to be careful? You could die. Okay? So, Hermione drinks first so that she can go back, and Harry's going to drink so he can go forward. Books and cleverness. Ron says he's done. Hermione takes Gilderoy Lockhart's word to be truth. Everything that he's written in these books to be truth. Because she trusts what she reads. She trusts what she reads in textbooks. She trusts what she reads in the Daily Prophet for a while. Until some things happen that shakes her trust in what she reads. Rowling is going to introduce very shortly in this book, maybe we can't trust everything we read. Okay? Well, that comes up later. So we get mudbloods and murmurs. Harry and the Gryffindors go out for practice, and the Slytherin team shows up. And Wood is like, wait, I booked the pitch. It's ours. And they have a note from Snape saying they can practice today on the Quidditch field, owing to the need to train their new seeker. And Draco steps forward. Okay? And they now have Nimbus 2001 broomsticks. Malfoy, page 112. Good, aren't they? But perhaps the Gryffindor team will be able to raise some gold and get new brooms too. You could raffle off those clean sweep 5s. I expect a museum would bid for them. The Slytherin team howl with laughter. At least no one on the Gryffindor team had to buy their way in, said Hermione sharply. They got in on pure talent. Pure ability. The smug look on Malfoy's face flickered. No one asked your opinion, you filthy little mudblood. Put mudblood in our world terms.
It's a racial slur.
Nigger. That's what it is. It's actually a term from the early 20th century, mudblood, that was used to describe the not descent, ancestry, something like that, of Africans. They rose out of the mud. Okay? Rowling is intentionally using this term. Harry knew at once Malfoy had said something really bad, but he doesn't know what. Notice what happens. Ron, how dare you! And he jumps at Malfoy. He whips out his wand. He points it in the wrong direction, but he's trying. This was Ron after all. Fred and George go after Flint, etc. So, Harry and Hermione take Ron back to Hagrid's hut. And page 114, Hagrid says, wondering when you're going to come see me. Thought it might be Lockhart again, so he wasn't answering the door. And Hagrid says about Lockhart, when Hermione says you're being unfair to him, he was the only man for the job. And I mean the only one. Getting very difficult to find anyone for the dark arts job. People aren't too keen to take it on. See, they're starting to think it's jinxed. No one's lasted long for a while now. So tell me, who is he trying to curse? How long has anyone lasted actually?
Year.
1 year. For how long? Since the year Harry was born. The Defense Against the Dark Arts job has been replaced every year. Okay, since then. We find out later. Malfoy called Hermione something Harry says must have been really bad. Everyone went wild. Ron, it was bad. Slugs come out of his mouth. Malfoy called her mudblood. He didn't. He did. Ron, it's about the most insulting thing he could think of. Mudblood's a really foul name for someone who was muggle-born. Non-magic parents. Some wizards, like Malfoy's family, who think they're better than everyone else because they're what people call pureblood. Notice Ron doesn't say, because we're what people call pureblood. Because Ron is pureblood. Another slug. The rest of us know it doesn't make any difference at all. Look at Neville. He's a pureblood. He can hardly stand a cauldron the right way up. Hagrid, and never invent a spell our Hermione can't do. It's a disgusting thing to call someone dirty blood, see? Common blood. It's ridiculous. Most wizards these days are half-blood anyway. If we hadn't married muggles, we'd have died out. Hagrid, I don't blame you for trying to curse them, Ron. But maybe it was a good thing your wand backfired. Spit Lucius Malfoy would have come marching up to school if you'd cursed the sun. At least you're not in trouble. Ron's coughing up slugs, if that's not trouble. So, Hagrid says, Harry, I've got a bone to pick with you. How come I don't have a signed photo? And then he says, I'm only joking. They keep talking, and Hagrid shows them, his magically grown pumpkins. McGonagall comes, gives them their detentions. Harry goes up to Lockhart's. In page 120, when he leaves Lockhart's, or just before he leaves, he hears a voice to chill the bone marrow, a voice of breathtaking ice-cold venom. Come to me. Let me rip you. Let me tear you. Let me kill you. And he's like, what? Lockhart's blabbing on away. Okay. Then we get the Death Day party. And what do we find out about Nearly Headless Nick?
He's 500 years old. Dead.
It's his 500th Death Day anniversary. When did he die?
October 31st, 14.
October 31st, I think it is. 1492. Okay? So what year is it? 1992. So the first book begins 1991. Second book, 92, 93, 94, 94, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96. Okay? First book is actually published 97. So it's like Harry finishes his whole career at Hogwarts before the first book comes into publication. So, Nick gets Harry out of a bind, and Harry says, I wish there was something I could do for you. Nick says there is. Come to my death day party, sorry. What did you want Harry to do? It's not enough to just come to the party. Well, that's pretty big.
Put
I
in a
mean,
good
Harry
word
Potter.
for him.
Put in a good word with him with, what's his name?
Sir Patrick.
Sir Patrick de Mimsy Porpington. Classic British name. And the Headless Hunt. Why? Nick wants to ride with the Headless Hunt. What's his little problem? He's mostly headless. His head is held on by a little flap of skin because the executioner didn't do his job well. Okay? So he can't ride with the Headless Hunt. Why? Because he can't kick his head on the ground and knock it along the floor like Polo. So, Harry, Ron, and Hermione leave the Death Day party, page 137. And Harry hears the voice again. Rip, tear, kill. He stumbles. Notice, he stumbles clutching at the stone wall, listening with all his might. Harry, it's that voice again. Shut up. So hungry. So long. Kill. Time to kill. They run and follow the voice. Harry says it's going to kill someone. And they go up to the 3rd floor hallway. And they see a thing. Shining on the wall, page 138. Something was shining on the wall ahead. They approached slowly, squinting through the darkness. Foot-high words had been daubed on the wall between 2 windows, shimmering in the light cast by the flaming torches. The chamber of secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air beware. And they see something hanging underneath. Mrs. Norris, Filch's cat. Now, what is the student's relationship with Mrs. Norris?
Where Norris is, Filch will closely follow.
Okay. So, what would they like to do to Mrs. Norris?
Rude.
Kick her. You know, this would be a case where probably kicking a cat would be justified, or torturing it maybe. Because wherever Mrs. Norris is, Filch is sure to be around. And Filch loves nothing more than to bust students.
Except
Right.
for Mrs. Norris.
So they see Mrs. Norris tied up. Ron, let's get out of here. Harry, shouldn't we try and help? Trust me, we don't want to be found here, Ron says. Too late. Malfoy comes in. Enemies of the air, beware. You'll be next, mudbloods. Notice he adds his own little flourish to the sign on the wall. Okay? Lockhart, Snape, and others show up. They go into Lockhart's office. And what does he start doing while Dumbledore is poking and prodding Mrs. Norris?
Saying what it is.
Yeah, what does Lockhart always do? He never shuts up.
Shame I wasn't there.
Okay? He says he knows what it is. He says he knows what to do, blah, 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 blah. Filch wants justice, which means he wants Harry dead. Harry says, top of 143, I never touched her. Okay? Why does Filch think Harry went after Mrs. Norris?
Because he read his letter.
Because he found out that Filch is a squib.
Filch is a squib. Born to a magical family, but he has no magical abilities himself. Okay? What does Snape say? Top of 144.
Might have just been bad timing.
I suggest, Headmaster, Potter's not being entirely truthful. Might be a good idea if he were deprived of certain privileges until he's ready to tell us the whole story. What in particular does Snape have in mind? Stop him from playing Quidditch. Why?
He's too damn good.
Because he's too damn good. Snape doesn't want to lose. Okay? What does Dumbledore say? Innocent until proven guilty, Severus. Really? Where is that a law? Here. Here. Okay? That is not a law in the wizarding world. How do we know? Well,
Serious.
in not many pages, 100, Hagrid's door, who shows up? Dumbledore and Cornelius Fudge. What's going to happen to Hagrid? He's going to be hauled off to Azkaban. Innocent until proven guilty? Describe Azkaban. Describe a real world prison that is like Azkaban.
The one,
Guantanamo.
Alcatraz.
No, Guantanamo, man. Guantanamo would be like the Hyatt Regency.
Alcatraz.
I mean, the inmates at Guantanamo, they've got a $500,000 soccer field to play soccer on. They've got brand new editions of the Quran. They get the full, dietary requirements and everything. Alcatraz, okay, kind of. It is on an island. Alcatraz is in the middle of the Golden Gate Bay. What's the big difference, however, between Alcatraz, Rikers Island, New York, Utica, or any other prison in this world and Azkaban? Dementors. Okay, we'll fully admit we can have some really bad sadistic guards. Just like we have some really bad sadistic cops. And some really bad sadistic people in all professions. That's not what the Dementors are.
Could another argument of Azkaban correlate to penitentiaries? The older definition of penitentiaries, like Penhurst Penitentiary, or
Yeah.
where they treated those who were mentally not there, but they treated them as less than human.
That's not penitentiary. That's asylum.
Okay.
Like an insane asylum. Okay? Well, that's what happens at Azkaban. You go insane at Azkaban because of the Dementors. See, we don't have anything akin to Dementors unless you were to staff Alcatraz with
Isolation.
to go through and pull out all the known sadists and rapists that you can find and put them in charge of the penitentiary. Okay? Put them in charge of the prison. But we don't work like that. So, Dumbledore says innocent until proven guilty, but we're going to find out that's not how things actually work. We're going to see a lot of people get shipped off to Azkaban without a trial. Okay? Skip a bunch. Go on to 149. They're off in History of Magic with Professor Binns. Describe Professor Binns. MTSU's had a couple professors like this, people who just did not know when to retire. I mean, they'd been here since the 40s, up until like 2-3 years ago. Professor Binns was a guy who went to class, went to the staff room, died, got up the next morning and walked back to class and just kept on teaching. He's the only ghost teaching, apparently, at Hogwarts. Okay? He teaches the history of magic. How does he teach it? I don't know, maybe you've had some professors like this.
Monotone lecture.
Monotone lecture. Doesn't vary intonation or pitch at all.
Hasn't changed his lessons in the last 100
He
years.
hasn't changed his lesson plans in the last 100 years. So, McGonagall. Hermione raises her hand, page 149. And she asks, I was wondering if you could tell us anything about the Chamber of Secrets. Dean Thomas suddenly sits up. Lavender Brown pulls her head up off her arms. Neville's elbow slips off his desk. My subject is history of magic. I deal with facts. Miss Granger, not myths and legends. Okay, he goes back to his previous lecture. And she's like, but don't legends always have a basis in fact? She's getting at a basic point of mythology here, or mythography, the study of myths and such, which is that many myths apparently do have a basis in fact. He says, well, yes, okay, I guess you could argue that, but the legend of which you speak is such a very sensational, even ludicrous tale. Notice, everybody is now sitting on their seat's edge. And he's like, okay, let me see, Chamber of Secrets. So he tells them how the school was founded. About over 1,000 years ago, by the four greatest witches and wizards of the age: Godric Gryffindor, Helga Hufflepuff, Rowena Ravenclaw, and Salazar Slytherin. They built the castle, far from prying Muggle eyes. For a few years, they worked together in harmony, seeking out youngsters who showed signs of magic, bringing them to the castle to be educated. But then disagreements grew up. We're going to hear this in one of the Sorting Hat songs. A rift begins to grow between Slytherin and the others. Why? Slytherin wanted to be more selective. He wanted it to be an Ivy League-like school, let's say. What does he mean? He wanted magical learning to be confined only within all magical families, which would mean Hermione wouldn't be there. Harry wouldn't be there. Harry was raised by the Dursleys, not by the Potters.
And
He-
wasn't Lily born to
Yeah, Lily's parents were Muggles.
Yeah.
He disliked taking students of Muggle parentage, believing them to be untrustworthy. Okay? So he goes on and says, this is what reliable historical sources tell us. But these honest facts have been obscured by the fanciful legend of the Chamber of Secrets. The story goes, Slytherin built a chamber hidden within the castle, okay, sealed the chamber so that only he could get in, but that there is a horror within that he could release. The whole thing is errant nonsense. The school's been searched. Okay, Hermione, what do you mean by the horror within? Some sort of monster. But there is no chamber and there is no monster. Seamus Finnegan. But if the chamber can only be opened by Slytherin's true heir, no one else would be able to find it. Would they? Is there any other place or room in the castle that can only be found by a certain person?
Requirement.
Room of requirement. But Professor, you'd probably have to use dark magic, Parvati Patil says. Just because a wizard doesn't use dark magic doesn't mean he can't. I repeat, if the likes of Dumbledore. But maybe you've got to be related to Slytherin, so Dumbledore couldn't, begins Dean Thomas. It is a myth, it does not exist. There is not a shred of evidence that Slytherin ever built so much as a secret broom cupboard. And some people take that secret broom cupboard to be an oblique reference to the room of requirement. Okay? So, they go on in page 154. They're back at the scene of the original crime, third floor hallway, and they notice the spiders acting strange. Hermione, have you ever seen spiders act like that? Harry, no. Have you, Ron? Ron, and Ron's backing away. I don't like spiders. Harry, I don't mind them dead. I just don't like the way they move. Hermione laughs. It's not funny, says Ron. If you must know, when I was 3, okay, so Ron was 3. How much older are Fred and George than Ron? I think they're 1 year. They're either 1 or 2 years ahead.
2.
When I was 3, so they were 5, Fred turned my teddy bear into a great big filthy spider because I broke his toy broomstick. So, Fred turned an inanimate object into a living, breathing spider when he was how old? 5. And they get to school when they're 11 and they take Transfiguration with McGonagall and they have trouble turning pin cushions into hedgehogs when they have wands and they're being instructed by a fairly well accomplished witch. What is this? This is bad writing. There's no other excuse for it. This is just bad writing on Rowling's part, where she hasn't fully, at this point, she hasn't fully thought out her world. She hasn't fully created it, not like Tolkien did. Okay? If you'd read the fairy story essay, Tolkien says in there that, you know, this little secondary world that an author creates, like Middle Earth, only works as long as everything in that world operates according to its own internal laws. Well, Rowling is going to say, okay, that children can't do this kind of advanced magic without training, without wands. What's the best Harry can do without a wand when he lives with the Dursleys? Can he channel his magical ability? No, he can't. He can get from the ground to the top of a building. Okay? He can break the glass or make it disappear. But to turn a teddy bear into a big giant spider, that's advanced. Okay? And Fred does it when he's 5. How long should Fred really be at Hogwarts if Fred can do that when he's 5? He should probably be able to go through all of his classes by the time he's a 3rd year. Just get it all through. Get him a time turner. Let him take a whole bunch of classes 1st, 2nd, 3rd year. And he'd be done. Okay? This is an inconsistency, a huge one. We're going to see others as we move along. Okay?
I'm not sure if the Hogwarts has ever been shown to have anything like clubbing out of the class.
Well, Hermione uses the time turner so that she can take a whole bunch. So, they go into the girls' bathroom. They meet Moaning Myrtle. And Percy catches them. And Hermione says, what we need, page 159, is some Polyjuice potion. Why? Because then we can pretend that we're Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle, and we can find out if Malfoy is the heir of Slytherin, because that's what they assume. Okay? Rogue Bludger. Harry's got a Quidditch match. And his broom's acting funny. On page 170, they have a timeout, and he says, you know, let me take care of the bludger. Because this one bludger just kind of like, sorry, the broom's not acting funny. The bludger's acting funny. It's like this one bludger has a death wish on Harry. Top of 170, Harry says, listen, with you two flying around me all the time, talking about Fred and George, the only way I'm going to catch a snitch is if it flies up my sleeve. Go back to the rest of the team. Let me deal with the rogue one. Fred, don't be thick. It'll take your head off. They look to Wood. Oliver, this is insane, says Alicia. You can't let Harry deal with that thing on his own. Harry, if we stop now, we'll have to forfeit the match. Okay? George says to Wood, this is your fault. Because what did Wood say to Harry in his pre-game, psych-up speech? Get the snitch or die trying. Okay? So they start playing again. And what happens? The bludger hits Harry in the elbow, knocks him off his broom. He falls. And when he wakes up, he's lying on the ground. His arm's bent at a funny angle. And there's Dumbledore to fix him. Madam Hooch. Madam Pomfrey. Gilderoy Lockhart. Harry, no, don't. Top of 173. A strange and unpleasant sensation started at Harry's shoulder and spread all the way down to his fingertips. It felt as though his arm was being deflated. He didn't dare look at what was happening. He had shut his eyes, his face turned away from his arm, but his worst fears were realized as the people above him gasped. Yes, well, that can sometimes happen. Point is, the bones are no longer broken, because he no longer has bones. Okay? Madam Pomfrey will be able to tidy you up a bit. Okay? So, Harry goes up to Madam Pomfrey's, to the infirmary, and she says, yes, I can fix you up. We can, give you some Skelegro and you'll grow your bones back. She says it's not a pleasant process. you're in for a rough night. Fred and George come in and the others bring him sweets. Harry goes to sleep. And he wakes up on page 176 and Dobby's sitting on his chest. Harry Potter came back to school. Dobby warned Harry Potter. Why didn't you heed Harry Potter? Why didn't Harry Potter go back home when he missed the train? Phew. Indeed, yes. Dobby hid, watched Harry Potter sealed the gateway. Okay. Harry asks Dobby, why do you wear that thing? Because Dobby blows his nose on his pillowcase. 'Tis a mark of the house elf's enslavement, sir. Dobby can only be freed if his masters present him with clothes, sir. Okay. Harry finally realizes it was Dobby that was putting the hex on the bludger. You tried to kill me. Not kill you, sir. Never kill you. Dobby wants to save Harry Potter's life. Harry, okay, so why do you want to send me home in pieces? Oh, if Harry Potter only knew. And listen to what Dobby says here. If he knew what he means to us who? To the lowly, the enslaved, we dregs of the magical world. If Harry Potter only knew what he means to us, is the us others like Harry? No. The lowly, the enslaved, the dregs of the magical world, the cast outs, okay? Those who have no place, as it were, the homeless, let's say. Dobby remembers how it was when he who must not be named was at the height of his power, sir. We house elves were treated like vermin, sir. Well, of course, I still am. He says, but mostly, sir, life has improved for my kind since you triumphed over he who must not be named. In other words, once Voldemort lost power, the lot of house elves improved dramatically. Harry Potter survived, and the Dark Lord's power was broken. And it was a new dawn, sir. A new dawn. A new beginning. Phoenix imagery. And now at Hogwarts, and Harry Potter shone like a beacon of hope for those of us who thought the dark days would never end. Harry was a ray of light to them. Okay? Oh, let's go all biblical, why don't we? Like a light shining in the darkness. John's Gospel, the opening prologue. And now at Hogwarts, terrible things are to happen now that the Chamber of Secrets is open once more. Okay, this is Dobby saying this, though. Dobby's not a human. He's a completely other creature. And in this completely other creature's world, let's say, they acknowledge the Chamber of Secrets. Bad Dobby, very bad Dobby. So there is a Chamber of Secrets. Tell me, Dobby. Okay? Dobby can't tell him. Harry says, Dobby, one of my best friends is Muggle-born. She'll be first in line if the chamber really has been opened. Harry Potter risks his own life for his friends. There's that sacrifice idea. So noble, so valiant. But he must save himself. He must. Harry Potter must not. What? Okay. We hear a noise. Hospital wing opens. The door opens. Dumbledore comes in with McGonagall and a statue. Dumbledore tells McGonagall, go get Madame Pomfrey. And who do we see? Colin Creevey with his camera. Petrified. He's been attacked. And Harry overhears the conversation. They open the camera and the film is melted. Smoke comes out. What does this mean, Albus? McGonagall asks. It means that the Chamber of Secrets is indeed open again. Okay. If Dumbledore says there's a Chamber of Secrets, there must be a Chamber of Secrets. So why doesn't Professor Binns know about it? Kept a secret? But Albus, surely. Who? Notice what Dumbledore does. We're going to see this later on. The question is not who, the question is how. Take WHO And imagine for a moment you have a wand, and WHO becomes HOW, just like we're going to see later on. We get the dueling club. Right? Yeah, go
So
ahead.
is that insinuating that McGonagall knows about the chamber as well?
Yeah,
So who are they the only two? I've never known that before, like.
Or
So
does
Ben's
everyone
is teaching that it's
I don't think
not-
so. I'm pretty sure Snape knows.
Okay,
Well, I mean, by the time we get later on, Cornelius Fudge definitely knows. Right? It might just be that Ben's,
is your saying you just believe it?
yeah,
It's not,
it's not fact. He hasn't seen it for himself, so to speak. But even he says, you know, if Dumbledore can't open it, it's not that,
but he even said that Dumbledore's never found it, didn't he?
yeah.
Did they find it or opened it?
He says if the likes of Dumbledore can't find it,
Yeah,
Oh,
okay? Does Dumbledore know where it is? No, he doesn't.
okay.
Does
Well,
McGonagall? No, they don't.
that professor died before Dumbledore was the headmaster, right?
That professor. Ben's? Oh, yeah. Ben's
So,
died long time
Dumbledore
ago.
could have found out about it in his tenure. And
I
Ben's
just
could have
wasn't
just
sure, I
been
was kinda
oblivious.
confused.
You know, that's possible, with one huge exception. What do you need to do to be able to open?
You need to
Speak
get
purple tongue.
You have to be a Parseltongue.
Oh,
You don't have to be an heir of Slytherin, you have to be a Parseltongue. Does Dumbledore know Parseltongue? No, he does not.
Okay, so how does that affect the ghosts who can kind of,
It's an interesting question.
especially the Bloody Baron being the Slytherin house ghost? I mean, I feel like he of all people, or he of any kind of entity, would know something more
Yeah.
about the Chamber of
Maybe it's like a barrier that can only be entered through the entrance. Kind of how,
Well, again,
you have to speak personally.
the entrance has to be opened.
like the
Right.
door,
Yeah.
like the door
And the Bloody Baron does not speak Parseltongue. How do we know?
Well, and Ron said before. I'll give it
Well, Dumbledore's going to tell us at the end. How many Parseltongues have there been at Hogwarts?
one. Three.
Three.
Slytherin, Voldemort,
And Harry.
and Harry. Why does Harry speak Parseltongue? Because of what we find out at the end of this novel. Okay? Not because he's heir of Slytherin. We'll try to get there.
And the
Quickly.
voices he's hearing in personal talk, which is why nobody else.
Yeah, the voices he's hearing are being spoken in Parseltongue. So, Dueling Club, Lockhart comes up with this great idea. So they have the Dueling Club. And what does Harry do when the snake gets really big? It looks like it's going to go after, who is it, Ernie? He speaks to it. What does Harry think he's doing? Get away from him, you big dumb snake. Only thing is, he's going, and everybody else kind of goes, whoa. Because now everybody who is there knows what about Harry. Because as soon as he does it, what does the snake do? Drops down to the ground, goes all docile. He's a Parseltongue. Everybody knows Slytherin was a Parseltongue. Not everybody knows Voldemort was. Okay? Page 195. Harry says, I'm a what? You're a Parseltongue. You can talk to snakes. Oh, yeah, I know. I mean, it's only the second time I've done it. Accidentally set a boa constrictor on my cousin Dudley at the zoo once. Long story. Did he? Did he tell the boa constrictor? Sick him. No. Okay. This is bad, Harry. What's bad? What? Justin Fitzfletchley, not Ernie. I told it not to attack Justin. Oh, is that what you said? What do you mean? You were there. I heard you speaking Parseltongue, snake language. You could have been saying anything. No wonder Justin panicked. You looked like you were egging the snake on. I spoke a different language. I didn't realize I could speak a language without knowing it. So what's wrong with me stopping a big old snake from biting off Justin's head? What does it matter how I did it? It matters because being able to talk to snakes was what Salazar Slytherin was famous for, says Hermione. That's why the symbol of Slytherin house is a serpent. And Harry starts, so maybe I am the heir of Slytherin. Okay. He overhears Ernie Macmillan talking in the library. And Ernie says something about Harry's relatives. And Harry says, page 200, it's not possible to live with the Dursleys and not hate them. I'd like to see you try. Okay. Why does Ernie bring this up? What did Ernie say in the first book? He was down for Eton. Why? He's a Muggle-born. Eton, the best college prep school in England. It's where the princes go. Okay? So, Harry starts to go up to his room. And he sees Justin Finch Fletchley, page 202, lying on the floor, and nearly headless Nick. He gets to his feet, but he couldn't just leave them lying here. He had to get help. Again, now when everyone thinks he's bad, he still thinks, I gotta help them somehow. And Peeves kind of spills the beans. And Harry goes up to Dumbledore's office. Okay? And he meets Fawkes. Fawkes bursts into flame. And Dumbledore teaches him about Fawkes, page 207. Really very handsome most of the time. Fascinating creatures, phoenixes. They can carry, immensely heavy loads or tiers of healing powers, and they make highly faithful pets. Notice, carry really heavy loads, tiers of healing powers, and they're very faithful. Okay? So, Harry says, you don't think it was me, Professor? Dumbledore says, no, Harry, I don't think it was you. But he does say, do you have anything you want to tell me, Harry? Now, what could Harry tell Dumbledore at this point? Yes, question.
Okay, so maybe I'm reading too much into this. Whenever I see Dumbledore, of course he's foreshadowing and giving us all kinds of hints. But whenever I see can carry immensely heavy loads, I see the strength of the Gryffindor, healing powers, kind of like the intelligence of of the Ravenclaw, and have the faithfulness of a Hufflepuff. That's how I see it.
Okay. It's possible. What colors is he?
Right into the
Right.
He's Gryffindor colors, though. So, I mean, it's possible. Nothing for Slytherin. So what does that mean?
It must attack Slytherin. It must be a weapon towards Slytherin.
Is Slytherin,
Well, Phoenix represents good,
okay,
then
is Slytherin house evil?
No.
no.
No. We're going to find out, book 5. We're going to find out in book 5 when we hear the Sorting Hat song. The Sorting Hat's going to say what happened early on. That Salazar Slytherin left the school downhearted. Okay? And it's going to talk about quartering and how bad quartering is. Okay? What does it mean? Sorting. He says, though condemned I am to sort you. Okay? And he kind of gives us, the head, kind of gives us this image. That the school is like a heart. Heart has 4 chambers, right? And what happens? One of them leaves and left us downhearted. What happens if one of the chambers stops working? Cardiac arrest. It's like, ever since Slytherin left, there's been something wrong at the heart of Hogwarts. Okay? And the sorting hat's going to say, he doesn't come out and say this explicitly, but it's implied. I shouldn't be sorting you. I shouldn't be quartering you. Because what does the sorting hat have to do in order to select people for Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff, Slytherin?
Judge
Okay? Judging isn't bad. Discrimination is not bad. Discrimination is a good thing. It means you're weighing things, you're sifting things. Okay? But what the sorting hat says is, what I do is I look at you and I place you in a house based on part of what you are, not all. Okay? Hermione's in Gryffindor. Where do her brains say she should be?
Ravenclaw.
And she tells us later on, the sorting hat suggested Ravenclaw, but I wanted to be in Gryffindor. And it went with her suggestion. Okay? In this song, the sorting hat is suggesting quartering is wrong. Because what does it do?
Breeds
It
divisiveness.
splits everybody. It splits the whole. When first years arrive, what are they?
First years.
They're just first years.
They're integrated into each other. They learn to know each other.
They're a common whole, like a ball. They go to the sorting hat, and what happens? Slice, 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 slice. They get split. See any relation to book 6 and book 7? Horcruxing?
Do you think it's also a responsibility of the sorting hat to not only separate, but separate equally? So sometimes,
I don't know. I don't get that impression. I mean, I don't think the sorting hat ever suggests that. I think it's entirely possible that you could have a group of first years where you get 5 Gryffindors and 3 Slytherins and 2. I don't think it's necessarily the same number in each class because they can't know that from the outset. They can't know what's going to happen. Shoot. 1, 3. It goes in there somewhere. Goes right there. So Dumbledore asks, anything you want to tell me? Anything at all? Harry? Nope. What could Harry tell him?
I'm hearing voices.
Yeah, well, he could say, I'm hearing voices, and Dumbledore would go, really? Would you like to talk about that, Harry? What kind of voices are they? Is it a sexy British voice? Or are you hearing snake voices? You know. Harry doesn't tell him. Okay. Christmas comes. The polyjuice potion is ready. They take it. Hermione turns into a cat. Harry and Ron go down as Crabbe and Goyle to the Slytherin homeroom, as it were, common room. They talk to Malfoy. They discover Malfoy is not the heir of Slytherin. Okay. And page 227, we get to the very secret diary chapter. They go into Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, and Harry gets the book, page 230. Ron says, are you crazy? It could be dangerous. Harry, how could it be dangerous? How could a book be dangerous? You'd be surprised. Some of the books the ministry's confiscated. Dad's told me there was one that burned your eyes out. And everyone who read Sonnets of a Sorcerer spoke in limericks for the rest of their lives. Some old witch in Bath had a book that you could never stop reading. You just had to wander around with your nose in it, trying to do everything one-handed. Harry, okay, I got your point. Okay? But we won't find out until we take a look at it. And he picks it down and picks it up. Okay? It's got a name, T.M. Riddle. It's got a maker's mark on the back. Place that it was made, Vauxhall Road, which is a real road in London. Okay? And it's empty. Page 232. They're talking about the book. And Ron says, you know, T.M. Riddle, he got an award for something 50 years ago. Special services to the school. Ron, responding to Harry, what? Well, the Chamber of Secrets was opened 50 years ago, wasn't it? That's what Malfoy said? Yeah. And this diary is 50 years old? So? Oh, wake up, Ron, says Hermione. We know the person who opened the chamber last time was expelled 50 years ago. We know T.M. Riddle got an award for special services to the school 50 years ago. Okay? So let's get our time frame. This is 1992, right?
Yes.
So 50 years ago,
42.
1942. Okay. What if Riddle got a special award for catching the heir of Slytherin? His diary would probably tell us everything. Well, that's a brilliant theory, Hermione. But it's blank. And she's like, ooh, maybe there's, you know, invisible ink kind of a thing. So she tries a bunch of stuff. It doesn't work. Okay. Harry takes the book up to his room, page 240. He's sitting there in his bed. He pulls out his quill, drops a blob of ink on it, and the ink disappears on that page. It just, like it gets sucked in. He's like, whoa, this is weird. Pulls his quill out again, dips it in the ink, and writes, my name is Harry Potter. They shine for a moment, poof, they're gone. And then it's like the ink comes back out of the page. Hello, Harry Potter. My name is Tom Riddle. How did you come by my diary? What should Harry be thinking at this point? Never trust anything that can think for itself, you know. Someone tried to flush it down a toilet. Lucky I recorded my memories. Harry, I'm at Hogwarts. Horrible stuff's been happening. You know anything about the Chamber of Secrets? Well, of course I know about the Chamber of Secrets. In my day, they told us it was a legend. It did not exist, but this was a lie. In my 5th year, the chamber was opened. So, 1942, Tom Marvolo Riddle's 5th year. So 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st. 41, 40, 39, 38. So, 38, he was 11. Take 11 years off. Tom Marvolo Riddle, born in 1927. That's not important necessarily. I just, like to figure things like that out. So, Tom Riddle says, I can show you. And what happens?
Gets pulled in.
The pages of the diary blow. Okay, stopping halfway through the month of June. Harry sees the little square of June 13th, grows like it gets into a television screen. He raises the book to press his eye against the little window, and before he knows what's happening, he's falling into the book. Okay? This is he's really into it. And what does he see? What does he witness in Tom Riddle's diary? Page 248. Ron comes in. It was Hagrid, Ron. Hagrid opened the Chamber of Secrets 50 years ago. What year was Hagrid in 1942?
Third.
Rupert Hagrid, 3rd year. So his 2nd year was in 41. His 1st year was in 1940. So he was born, 1929? All right. Tom Riddle's 2 years ahead of him. So what does this mean? This is 1992. How old's Hagrid? 63. How old's Voldemort? 65. How old's Dumbledore? Over 100. I think we're told at one point, or J.K. Rowling says at one point somewhere, Dumbledore, by the time he dies, is something like 112, 120, something like that. Okay? So, Chapter 14, Cornelius Fudge. Harry and Ron go to talk to Hermione the next day. Page 250. Riddle might have got the wrong person, says Hermione. Maybe it was some other monster that was attacking people. Ron, how many monsters do you think this place can hold? Do you really want to ask that question when you're talking about Hagrid? We always knew Hagrid had been expelled, said Harry. Taxon must have stopped after Hagrid was kicked out. Hagrid said he was expelled in his 3rd year. Riddle does sound like Percy. Who asked him to squeal on Hagrid anyway? But the monster had killed someone, Ron, says Hermione. And Riddle was going to go back to some Muggle orphanage if they closed Hogwarts, said Harry. I don't blame him for wanting to stay here. Notice, I never noticed this before, I've been teaching this for 18 years. Notice what Harry says at that point. Notice what he expresses.
Understanding.
Louder?
Understanding?
Yeah. Okay. What else? Agreement with Tom Riddle. Why?
Because he knows the pain of having to go back to somewhere where you don't enjoy being.
Which is worse? Old Mrs. Cole and her orphanage that we read about in Book 6, or the Dursleys?
I would think the Dursleys. Just because you have the potential to have a family that could love you and they openly
Okay,
choose
yeah.
not to.
You have the potential, but he doesn't have that.
It doesn't actually matter which is worse at this point.
It's true. It's true. Harry and Tom Riddle are both orphans. Okay. You met Hagrid down Nocturne Alley, didn't you, Harry? Harry, yeah, he was buying some flesh-eating slug repellent. Ron's kind of like, sure he was. Think we could go and ask Hagrid about it? Ron, yeah, that'd be real cheerful. So, Hagrid, tell us, been opening the Chamber of Secrets recently? Letting Slytherin's, monster out? Okay. So,
Would Hagrid have to be able to speak Parcel then?
that's a good question.
Because if he opened it 50 years ago.
If Hagrid opened it, he would have had to be able to speak Parseltongue. Okay. Page 234. Here he hears the voice again. He tells them, and Hermione says, I think I've just understood something. I've got to go to the library. Harry, what does she understand? Ron, loads more than I do. Notice when Hermione needs information, poof, off to the books. Okay? So Harry's on his way down to his next Quidditch match. And the match gets canceled. Harry and Ron get taken up to the hospital ward, and they see Hermione, now petrified. Okay? She's got a mirror, and her other fist is clenched. So people come up to Harry now, like Ernie McMillan and who is it, Hannah Abbott, and say, sorry, we know you would never do this to Hermione. You might do it to some of these others. You wouldn't do it, And they believe that Harry is not the heir of Slytherin. So 259, Harry tells Ron he needs to go talk to Hagrid. So he gets the cloak out and they go down to Hagrid's office. Or hut. And they start to talk to Hagrid. They hear a knock on the door. They throw the cloak on over themselves and they hide in a corner. In comes Dumbledore. Behind Dumbledore is Cornelius Fudge. Ron tells Harry, he's the Minister of Magic. It's like the President of the United States. Walking into Hagrid's hut. Bad business, Hagrid. Very bad business. Had to come. Page 261. 4 attacks on Muggleborns. Things have gone far enough. Ministry's got to act. What does that mean, Ministry's got to act? Ministry's going to conduct an investigation?
No.
I never.
Seen to do something.
Exactly. You know, I never. Professor Dumbledore, sir. I want it understood. Hagrid has my full confidence. Look, Albus. Hagrid's record's against him. What record? 50 years ago.
Letting out a giant freaking monster that ate someone.
Well, that could be the record, but I don't think that's what he's talking about. I think he's talking about the record that 50 years ago, Hagrid was expelled from Hogwarts because somebody accused him of having opened the Chamber of Secrets. Ministry's got to do something. School governors have been in touch. Yet again, Cornelius, I tell you, taking Hagrid away will not help in the slightest. His blue eyes were full of a fire Harry had never seen before. It's almost like Gandalf the Grey is about to be uncloaked. Look at it from my point of view, says Fudge. I'm under a lot of pressure. Got to be seen doing something. Okay? Like when there's a shooting. What does the president always do? Finds the nearest microphone he can. To do what? Got to be seen doing something. Even if whatever he's going to do is completely useless. Okay? If it turns out it wasn't Hagrid, he'll be back and no more said. But I've got to take him. Got to. Take me? Take me where? Is he going to take him down to the Ministry of Magic in London? No. He's going to send him to prison. Without what?
Trial.
Without a trial. So much for innocent until proven guilty. Okay? For a short stretch only. Not a punishment, Hagrid, more a precaution. You know, kind of like, what do the cops call this? Protective custody. Not Azkaban. Okay? Lucius Malfoy comes in. Hagrid, what are you doing here? Get out of my house. Dreadful things, Dumbledore. He offers Dumbledore an order of suspension. Dumbledore's being removed from office. You'll find all 12 signatures on it. I'm afraid we feel you're losing your touch. How many attacks have there been now? 2 more this afternoon? Why, at this rate, there'll be no more Muggleborns left at Hogwarts. And we all know what an awful loss that will be. Okay? Fudge can't believe it. Dumbledore? No, last thing we want. See here, Malfoy, if Dumbledore can't stop them, I mean to say, who can? What does Fudge admit there?
No one has more power.
Dumbledore's the only thing we have going for us. Okay? Compare Fudge and Dumbledore. Kindergarten, PhD. Moron, not moron. Or moron, Einstein.
Doesn't he send owls to Dumbledore?
Yeah, he regularly sends messages to Dumbledore asking for advice and stuff. Okay? So, Dumbledore says, of course I'll leave. But you will find, page 263 at the bottom, that I will only truly have left this school when none here are loyal to me. You'll also find that help will always be given to Hogwarts to those who ask for it. Malfoy's like, very good, wonderful sentiments. That's really nice to know. And Hagrid turns around and speaks to the open room. And if anyone wanted to find out some stuff, all they'd have to do would be to follow the spiders. That'd lead them right. That's all I'm saying. And it's kind of like, okay, you crazy old giant. And so Harry and Ron follow the spiders. And they meet Aragog off in the Forbidden Forest. Okay? After Ernie Macmillan kind of makes peace. So they meet Aragog, and what do they learn?
Hagrid did not open the chamber.
Hagrid didn't open the Chamber of Secrets. There is something in the castle that the Frighter's are scared of. The spiders are scared of. Man. Okay? And so they're kind of like, well, okay, thank you for the conversation and the information. We'll be going now. And what does Aragog think? No. Juicy, a lot of meat and blood there. You can feed my family. And the car rescues them. Page 281. Hagrid never opened the Chamber of Secrets. faults, says Harry. He was innocent. Ron's thinking, really, Harry? He raised a giant spider. You call that innocent? So, 282. Harry puts together everything Aragog said. 50 years ago, a girl died. The girl who died, Aragog said she was found in a bathroom. What if she never left the bathroom? What if she's still there? A moaning myrtle. Okay. Ginny comes to talk to Harry. Percy interrupts. Harry and Ron get caught by McGonagall. They say they were going to see Hermione. She lets them go up, and they find, crunched up in her hand, a piece of a library book. Okay. Notice what this means, of course. She not only broke a rule,
She defiled
She
the book.
defaced a book.
she defaced a book. She desecrated, like a sacred text. Of course, all texts are kind of sacred to Hermione. And so they read about the basilisk, and they see the word pipes. So now they know how the monster is getting around the castle, through the pipes of the building. Okay? They know what the monster is. They know what can kill it. They know what it's afraid of. They know why there have been dead roosters. So now all they have to do is find out how to get to the entrance. Okay? And they hear one more student taken. This time, the student is taken, not just petrified, taken herself into the Chamber of Secrets. Ginny Weasley. So, Lockhart comes in the staff room, and all the teachers turn on him. Page 294. Okay. Snape says, just the man, the very man. A girl has been snatched by the monster, Lockhart, taken into the Chamber of Secrets itself. Your moment has come at last. Notice, Lockhart blanched. He goes a deathly white. That's right, Gilderoy, says Sprout. Weren't you just saying last night you've known all along where the entrance to the Chamber of Secrets? Flitwick, well, I'm sure you said you knew what was inside it. Snape jumps in, McGonagall jumps in, and they say, we'll leave you to it, Gilderoy. He leaves, and McGonagall says, right, that's got him out from under our feet. Useless pilot. Heads of houses should go and inform their students what has happened. So, Harry and Ron go to find Lockhart. And what do they discover?
He was leaving.
He's a fraud. He's a complete fraud. Okay? 297. Harry, you wrote them! Talking about his books. My dear boy, do use your common sense. My books wouldn't have sold half as well if people didn't think I'd done all those things. No one wants to read about some ugly old Armenian warlock, even if he did save a village from werewolves. He'd look dreadful on the front cover. No dress sense at all. In The Witch Who Banished the Banded Banshee, he had a hair lip. Come on. So you've just been taking credit for what a load of other people have done? Harry, it's not as simple as all that. After all, what did Lockhart have to do? He had to research. He had to find these people. He had to get them to confide in him, and then what? Erase their memories. Okay? And take all the credit. So what kind of defense against the dark arts has he ever really actually done? None. Okay? So, they go to the girls' bathroom, and Ron says, Harry, say something in Parseltongue. Harry says, open up. Looks at Ron, English. Open up. Okay? They go down in. Lockhart tries to curse them, but he does it using Ron's wand. And he does it to himself. Causes an explosion. Harry on one side of the cave-in, Ron and Lockhart on the other. So Harry goes off to find Jenny, page 307. He goes into the entrance beyond the serpents, and he sees Jenny. Not petrified. He picks her up. Jenny, please wake up, wake up, wake up. She won't wake, says a soft voice. Harry looks. Tom? Tom Riddle? How does he know who it is?
He's
seen him in the book. Okay? What do you mean she won't wake? She's still alive, but only just. Are you a ghost? A memory. Preserved in a diary for 50 years. And Harry sees the diary. You gotta help me, Tom. There's a basilisk. It could come along any moment. Please, help me. We gotta go, Harry says, 308. It won't come until it's called. What do you mean? Look, give me my wand. You won't be needing it. What do you mean? Harry goes on like this for 4 pages or so. What gives? What's this tell us about Harry?
Takes him a while to see bad and good.
Kind of slow. Let's just put it that way. He's kind of slow.
It's not a Ravenclaw.
He's not a
He
Ravenclaw.
doesn't have it bad.
Is it that he doesn't think bad of anybody? No, he thinks bad of Malfoy.
Do you think he's slow or he's just like he's too willing to preserve like the goodness in people before he sees the bad? Like it's not that he doesn't get it, it's he doesn't want to believe it.
No, I think he's slow. I think it's pretty clear. He's kind of dense. In this instance, it takes him a while for him to realize. What do you mean I won't be? I've waited a long time for this, Harry Potter, for the chance to... Look, I don't think you get it. We're in the Chamber of Secrets. Really? Tom Riddle doesn't understand about the Chamber of Secrets when Tom Riddle helped solve the riddle of the Chamber of Secrets 50 years ago? Come on, Harry. How did Ginny get like this? Harry asked. Well, that's an interesting question. She opened her heart and spilled all her secrets to an invisible stranger. An invisible stranger? This could be like the invisible people in the mirror? Huh. What are you talking about? The diary. My diary. Little Jenny's been writing in it for months and months. And he goes, it's been boring. To hear her talk about all her little problems. Harry Potter this, Harry Potter that. He says, of course, I was interested in. Harry, page 310. What do you mean? Haven't you guessed yet, Harry Potter? Ginny Weasley opened the Chamber of Secrets. Ginny Weasley strangled the school roosters, daubed threatening messages on the walls. She set the serpent of Slytherin on 4 mudbloods in the Squib's cat. No. Yes. She didn't know what she was doing at first. Why didn't she?
She was possessed.
She was being possessed by Tom Riddle. Does Ginny Weasley know Parseltongue? Nope. But Tom Riddle does. Okay. He mentions Hagrid. Harry, page 311. Hagrid's my friend. You framed him, didn't you? It was my word against his. Come on, Harry, think about this. My word, top student, head boy, versus Hagrid. A big oath. Only the Transfiguration teacher, Dumbledore, seemed to think Hagrid was innocent. Top of 312. Harry, I bet Dumbledore saw right through you. He watched me. And he goes on and says, I decided to leave behind a diary, preserving my 16-year-old self in its pages, so that one day with luck I would be able to lead another in my footsteps and finish Salazar Slytherin's noble work. Harry, well, you haven't finished it. No one's died this time. In a few hours, Mandrake Trot will be ready. Everyone who is petrified will be all right again. He goes, I'm not interested in that anymore. You're my new target, Harry. Okay? And he says, 313, I have many questions for you, Harry Potter. Like what? How is it that you, skinny boy with no extraordinary magical talent, managed to defeat the greatest wizard of all time? How did you escape with nothing but a scar while Lord Voldemort's powers were destroyed? Why do you care? Voldemort was after your time. Voldemort, says Riddle softly. Now, notice what Harry's not catching on here. What is Tom Riddle doing that nobody else does, except for Harry and Dumbledore?
Calling him by the name.
He's using his name.
I think he's even putting Lord in front of it.
Yeah, Lord Voldemort.
You said dark, never mind.
While Lord Voldemort's powers were destroyed. Why do you care how I escaped? Voldemort was after your time. Voldemort, said Riddle softly, is my past, present, and future Harry Potter. He pulls out Harry's wand. He writes, Tom Marvolo Riddle. He waves the wand. I am Lord Voldemort. You see, it was a name I was already using at Hogwarts to my most intimate friends, of course. Meaning when? In his 5th year. You think I was going to use my filthy muggle father's name forever? I, in whose veins run the blood of Salazar Slytherin himself through my mother's side? I keep the name of a foul, common muggle who abandoned me even before I was born, just because he found out his wife was a witch? No, Harry. I fashioned myself a new name. Harry's brain seemed to have jammed. It's like, he's like, again? You know, 3rd year or 2nd year? You're not. Harry says you're not. In response to what? When I had become the greatest sorcerer in the world, you're not. Not what? Not the greatest sorcerer in the world. And I think Rowling really should have just pulled this full British thing on it at this point. And should have said, not the greatest sorcerer in the world, oh boy. But she doesn't. Sorry to disappoint you and all that, but the greatest wizard in the world is Albus Dumbledore. Everyone says so. Even when you were strong, you didn't dare try and take over at Hogwarts. Dumbledore saw through you when you were at school. He still frightens you now wherever you're hiding these days. Dumbledore has been driven out of this castle by the mere memory of me. Really? What's driven Dumbledore out of the castle? Lucius Malfoy strong-arming the other 11 governors. Harry, he's not as gone as you might think. And all of a sudden, beautiful music. And Fawkes comes in. Drops a ragged thing at his feet. Lands on his shoulder. Bird stops singing. That's a phoenix. Fawkes? Riddle looks at the thing that dropped at Harry's feet and says, and that's the old school sorting hat. So it was. This is what Dumbledore sends his defender? A songbird and an old hat? Like we're going to have a song and dance routine? Ooh, do you feel brave, Harry Potter? Do you feel safe now? Harry's thinking, I'm not MacGyver, but what can I do with this? You know, how can I turn the bird and the hat into a weapon? To business, Harry. Twice in your past and my future we have met. Twice I failed to kill you. How did you survive? Tell me everything. The longer you talk, the longer you live. Harry says, no one knows. But I know why you couldn't kill me. Because my mother died to save me. My common muggle. Ooh. That's right, he learns that in book 1. My common muggle-born mother. I was thinking, when does Harry learn that his mother was muggle-born? It's when Petunia blurts out, of course I knew what she was! Going off to that freak school, you know, coming home with frog spawn and turning teacups into... Okay. She stopped you killing me, and I've seen the real you. I saw you last year. You're a wreck. He says at the end of book 7, and I've seen the real you, Voldemort. Actually calls him Tom. I've seen the real you, Tom. Try for some remorse, he says at the end of book 7. You're barely alive. That's where all your power got you. You're in hiding. You're ugly. You're foul. So your mother died to save you. Yeah, that's a powerful counter charm. I can see it now. But he couldn't see it. See, he was 16 essentially here. What, 1981, so almost 40 years beyond. He couldn't see it when he was in his mid-50s. Lord Voldemort, when Lily says, no, not Harry, doesn't realize, she's sacrificing herself for him. If I do this, this will happen. That's a powerful counter charm, self-sacrifice. So there is nothing special about you. Strange likenesses, that's all. You must have noticed. Both half-bloods. Is Harry a half-blood?
No.
No, he is not. Not literally. His mother was a witch. His father was a wizard. Voldemort's mother was a witch. His father was a muggle. If anything, you'd have to say Harry's kind of, three-quarter blood because his grandparents on his mother's side weren't. Both half-bloods, orphans, raised by muggles. Probably the only two Parselmouths to come to Hogwarts since the great Slytherin himself. We even look alike. So he says, now I'm going to teach you a little lesson. He calls the basilisk. Harry puts on the hat. Help me. Help me. Someone. Anyone. Right? As Fox is attacking the... Sorry, that's before he puts on the hat. As Fox is attacking the basilisk sweeps the hat into Harry's arms. He puts it on. Help me, please, help me. Who's he asking help of? Dumbledore? Is it? Who did the hat belong to? Godric Gryffindor. There's an answering voice. There was no answering voice. He's asking the Sorting Hat. Help me, because the Sorting Hat talks. The hat contracted, and something hard and heavy falls on Harry's head, almost knocks him out. He picks it up, and it's a sword. Okay? The basilisk lunges at Harry. Harry throws his whole weight behind the sword, drives the hilt into the roof of the serpent's mouth. So, the sword probably has a blade of 3 feet long or so. He sticks that whole blade all the way into the basilisk's head. But in doing so, because he's going right at the mouth, he gets stuck in the arm with a fang of the basilisk. And poison starts to pour into his veins. He slides down against the wall. Fox comes over, and Harry's, you're a fantastic fox. And Tom Riddle stands near him and says, you're dead, Harry Potter, dead. Even Dumbledore's bird knows it. See what he's doing, Potter? He's crying. Oh, poor Harry, he's dying. I'm going to sit here and watch you die, Harry Potter. Take your time, I'm in no hurry. And Harry thinks, as Voldemort drones on, if this is dying, it's not so bad. Notice what Voldemort says. Okay, Harry, your mother, she bought you 12 years of borrowed time. Hate to tell you this, there's another biblical allusion there. The Old Testament. King Hezekiah, God gave him an additional 12 years. If this is dying, thought Harry, it's not so bad. Even the pain was leaving him. But was this dying? And he realizes, Fox, tears, healing. Okay. Harry grabs the diary, he pulls the tooth out, and stabs it. And the ink just starts to flow. And Tom Riddle dies. Harry gets Hermione, gets Ginny, he gets Ron and Lockhart, and they go out, okay? They fly up the thing. They go into the staff room where they see the Weasleys, McGonagall, Dumbledore, .328. McGonagall says, very well, you found out where the entrance was, breaking 100 school rules into pieces along the way, I might add, but how on earth did you get all that out of there alive? Did you all get out of there alive, Potter? Notice Rowling has earth italicized. How on earth did you do that? Earlier in book 1, she asked, how in the name of heaven did Harry survive? Heaven and earth. Harry's thinking, how do I reply? What do I say? Well, Ginny was the one who actually opened the Chamber of Secrets. Ginny's the one responsible for all these people being cursed. And Dumbledore says, what interests me most is how Lord Voldemort managed to enchant Ginny, when my sources tell me he's currently hiding in the forests of Albania. Mr. Weasley, what? You know who? Okay. Harry says it's the diary. So, Dumbledore gets everybody else out, so it's just he and Harry alone. But before he does it, page 329, he does say, Lord Voldemort was once called Tom Riddle. I taught him here 50 years ago. He disappeared after leaving the school. Then he gets everybody to leave. Okay? Page 332. We've got 10 minutes. Dumbledore tells Harry to sit down. I want to thank you, Harry. You must have shown me real loyalty down in the chamber. Nothing but that could have called Fawkes to you. And so you met Tom Riddle. I imagine he was most interested in you. Riddle said I'm like him. Strange likenesses. Did he now? And what do you think, Harry? Dumbledore kind of plays the role of counselor. And what do you think about that, Harry? I don't think I'm like him. I'm in Gryffindor. He was in Slytherin. And then if I were filming this, I'd have Harry kind of take a big, deep sigh. The Sorting Hat told me I'd have done well in Slytherin. Everyone thought I was Slytherin's heir for a while because I can speak Parseltongue. You can speak Parseltongue because Lord Voldemort, who is the last remaining ancestor, descendant. Does your book have descendant?
Yes, sir.
Oh, really?
Mine has ancestor.
So does mine.
Yeah, this is a fairly early.
Mine is too, and it
Printing.
says descendant.
Descendant.
Mine's from the UK and it says descendant.
Yours is ancestor?
Yeah, this is a September of 2000 printing, so it has to be a fairly old printing for it. Yeah, mine has ancestor.
Mine's 1999.
This is September 2000.
And what does it read?
Mine
Yours
says descendant.
descendant? Okay.
Descendant or
Wait, yeah, text 1998, illustration 99, yeah.
It doesn't have another date at the very bottom after that.
Paperback printing, September
Oh,
2000.
September.
First
2000.
Scholastic Trade. Yeah, this is the first Scholastic paperback, first edition of the paperback. That's why it's in the shape it is. Okay.
So you said yours says descendant or ancestor?
Ancestor.
See, mine says descendant, and it's
Yeah.
the same year as yours.
Yeah, I got September 2000, but I got ancestor.
Mine says First Scholastic Trade, paperback printing, September 2000.
Yeah, yours is the first, but doesn't it have another date also, you said?
Well, the text copyright 1998, but at the bottom it says First Scholastic Trade, paperback printing, September 2000, and it says descendant.
Yeah, there's probably another date in there that's indicating, you got all these numbers here. These are the numbers of printings. Okay.
Weird.
So it went through a correction.
Printed in USA 40. What
So-
number is that?
He goes on, unless I'm much mistaken, he transferred some of his powers to you the night he gave you that scar. Not something he intended to do, I'm sure. So, he transferred some of his powers to you that night he gave you that scar. Harry hears that, and what does he do? He interprets it. He listens to Dumbledore, and then he puts Dumbledore's words in his own words. In words Harry, can understand better. Listen to how Harry interprets it. Voldemort put a bit of himself in me? It's not quite the same. Unless I'm mistaken, he transferred some of his own powers to you. Harry, he put a bit of himself. Like I've now got a bit of Voldemort floating around in me. Certainly seems so. So I should be in Slytherin. Why does Harry say that? It goes back to Hagrid at Flourish and Blotts. What does Hagrid tell Arthur Weasley about the Malfoys?
They're bad blood.
Rotten to the core. Harry thinks he has something rotten in his core. The something rotten is called a piece of Lord Voldemort. The Sorting Hat could see Slytherin's power in me, and it put you in Gryffindor. Dumbledore doesn't let him finish the sentence. Listen to me, Harry. You happen to have many qualities Salazar Slytherin prized in his handpicked students. His own very rare gift, Parseltongue, resourcefulness, determination, certain disregard for rules. But the Sorting Hat placed you in Gryffindor. You know why that was. Think! Because I asked not to go in Slytherin. Exactly. Which makes you very different from Tom Riddle. Money quote for this book. It is our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities. The money quote for the first book?
Takes a great deal of courage.
No, I've got to rewind the tape. Sheesh. I know this thing. To the well-organized mind, death is but the next adventure. Okay? It is our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are. Far more than our abilities. Because our abilities mean what? They're mere tools. What do our choices mean? The direction we're going to go. Okay? Harry sits there motionless. You want proof, Harry, that you belong in Gryffindor? I suggest you look more closely at this. And he takes the sword and he hands it back to him. And Harry looks at it really for the first time. He turns it over. The hilt has rubies the size of eggs on it. And he sees just below the hilt, that is, on the blade, Godric Gryffindor. This is the sword that belonged to Godric Gryffindor. How old is this sword?
1,000 plus.
It's over 1,000 years. Only a true Gryffindor could have pulled that out of the hat. Harry, what does Dumbledore mean? Just as Tom Riddle is a true Slytherin, meaning a descendant, Harry is a true Gryffindor. He's a descendant of Godric Gryffindor. Okay? So he tells Harry, you need some sleep. Lucius Malfoy comes in, huffing and puffing. Harry says exactly what happened and how Ginny got the diary. Dumbledore says, I hope none of Voldemort's things fall into other students' kind of belongings. And what does Harry do? He sees Dobby. Dobby's sitting there going, no. And Harry takes the sock off. He asks Dumbledore for the book. Notice the difference between the book and the film. He asks Dumbledore for the book, and he takes his sock and he stuffs it inside like this. Okay? And runs to Mr. Malfoy and hands it to him. Okay? Isn't that right? Or did I get it exactly wrong? No, exactly wrong. The film does it that way. He takes the diary and he stuffs it into the sock. In the film, he takes the sock and merely places it inside the book. So that when he hands it to Mr. Malfoy, what's Malfoy grabbing hold of? Book! In the book, what's Malfoy grabbing hold of? Harry's dirty, smelly, stinky, sweaty sock. He gets it, he pulls the sock off the book, and because he doesn't want to keep holding the sock, he throws it. And Dobby catches it. And what does he do? Got a sock. Page 338. Dobby is free. You lost me my servant boy. You shall not harm Harry Potter. You shall go now. You shall not touch Harry Potter. You shall go now. Harry Potter free Dobby. Harry Potter set Dobby free. Okay? So Dobby's kind of in Harry's debt from that point on. So, first two books. Notice, we learn a bit about Harry's family, about his background. What else? We learn a bit more about Harry himself and his relationship with Voldemort. Okay? Now, book 3, Voldemort's absent. He's in book 1, he's in book 2. He's only in book 3 as a name, but not as a physical presence. Why? Because she's setting us up for book 4. Okay? All right, we'll stop there. I plan to have your